So welcome to RExperience, an online conference on customer experience in real estate, which is brought to you by Spaceflow. My name is Ondřej Vodňanský. I am a business development manager here at Spaceflow, and I'll be your host for the first half. And I'm joined here by Melis Karabulut, who's our marketing manager and who'll be taking over later in the afternoon. We will have today, a lot to look forward to: discussions, panels, networking sessions, case studies on all things customer experience. I mean, the real estate market is changing, right? It might be because of WeWork years back, who've changed kind of what people expect from the offices. We've had COVID. We have something that people call hotelization of real estate, where some operators are bringing in amenities and personalized services to other segments of real estate other than just hotels. And we have, of course, ESG and the S in ESG, which has a lot to do with how real estate business treats its users. So those are some of the topics that we'll be touching on today. So we have 1 minute for the next segment. Let me introduce the segment. We will have Lukas Balik, the CEO of Spaceflow, coming up, and Immo from Hydda. Immo Haftor, the CEO of Group Synergies at Hydda, and they will be discussing customer experience and satisfaction trends in real estate and how PropTech can influence them. Lukas, Immo, can you please turn on your cameras and microphones? And I'll turn mine off. And Melis, please do whatever magic needs to happen so Lukas and Immo are kind of highlighted potentially, and I'll mute myself and stop my video. Over to you, to Lukas and Immo for the next segment.
Thank you, Ondřej, and good morning, everyone. As Ondřej said, in this session, we would love to kind of like explore, the basics of what does it customer experience means for real estate, and what we see are the, let's say, major trends in the industry. So just a brief intro. My name is Lukas Balik, and I'm CEO and one of the co-founders of Spaceflow. And Spaceflow provides a tenant experience platform for modern real estate, both on commercial and residential side. And together with me is Immo. Immo, hello, are you with us? The intro, again, like I said, I would love to spend a few minutes is why is customer experience important for real estate? So in essence, customer experience is one of the most important aspects of any successful business. And the PropTech real estate industry is no different, right? So as a traditional industry, real estate was slower to adopt to new technology. And historically, we were thinking about real estate as a B2B business, sort of renting square meters, but not thinking about employees, residents, and all visitors as customers. And because the time has changed and now kind of facing the new reality and the new needs and expectation, it's absolutely vital for real estate companies to put customer experience and focus on customer centricity in the core of their operations to remain competitive and also to attract and retain tenants. So if we go one slide further.
Lukas, do you hear me now?
Yes. Amazing.
So sorry about the problems getting logged on here, but yeah, I needed to adjust the volume. Sorry, everyone. Immo Haftor here from Hydda Group. Really glad to be here, and really look forward to both being a part of this first session and also listen to the other speakers. So sorry, Lukas, about the delay.
No worries, amazing. And we can continue. So as discussed, let's spend a little bit time on what are the emerging trends at the moment that are shaping the customer-centric approach in modern real estate. The first one is linked with the hospitality mindset. As Andre said in the intro to today's session, pretty much buildings need to be able to create desires in order to attract people, right? So we can see this on the commercial office side, that it's really, really important to kind of like be able to attract and bring people back. And how we can do it is basically embracing the mindset that we need to offer them more service through amenities that we can find, for example, in hotels, through concierge services, and so on. So that's the first one. The second one, facilitating vibrant communities. In essence, real estate provides spaces for us to interact, right, as a human being. So kind of like to boost the human experiences. So placemaking and tailored programming is something that is extremely relevant. And today we will have some really progressive hosts and companies that will talk a bit more about what does it mean, how we can build really strong communities in districts, in cities. Going further, Emmy, you will take this one, right?
Yeah, I think really interesting points, Lukas, and it also, I mean, I think the trends that we see, they really move a little bit into each other, and we have the flexibility here where we talked about the space as a service concept. Hydda, where I'm active, is mostly active in the Nordic market, and many of the property owners I meet, struggle still with people not coming back to the office or to the kind of university premises, or kind of different type of spaces that now are empty. One example was a really premium office space in the central of Stockholm. I was there last week, and they said we just have 25% occupancy rates Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. The rest of the week, it's totally empty, and during kind of the really high times, 25% occupancy. So we have a lot of free space now that we can do something with, and we might have we might be able to expect higher levels of churn if people really don't use the spaces they're paying for. So I think many property owners now are asking themselves, okay, so how can I make the tenants really happy and really kind of attracted to come back to the office? And how can I also leverage from the free space that I'm having? So we have square meters that's not being fully used or optimized. So I think that's really interesting things that's happening now when many property owners are expanding their views on kind of their perspective on what should the real estate business be about, shifting from the square meter thinking to much more than space as a service. And as we reason around this, it's a lot about kind of when you look at the customer journey, it doesn't start when you enter the building. It starts way before that, and it ends way after you left the building. So as a property owner, you need to kind of look at the full customer journey and start to understand, how can I be a part here where I really elevate the experience for my customer, kind of with my square meter as a base for the business. But then I need to open up, I need to connect with others, I need to work kind of within the block with the other stakeholders there, with transportation systems, maybe with the city. So much more focused now. I think everyone are kind of exploring how to do this in the best possible way and where they actually can get the best leverage from thinking like this. But it's about understanding how we can build this vibrant city with this great square meters that we have that's not really fully used. So I think, yeah, maybe a long I think this is really interesting topic. Yeah, and then we have the mixed use space. So how can we actually, for example, how can we use the entrance of a big office space as a concert hall on Friday evening? So how do we share spaces with each other and see the opportunities that we have in all these empty spaces? I think this is also extremely important when you put on the sustainability glasses. We know that the carbon dioxide emissions come so much from construction, and we have a lot of space already. So how do we make the best use of what we have rather than building new? And
Andre mentioned WeWork, right, in the beginning of this session, and one thing that WeWork did great is how they connect the customers through brand, both offline and digitally. And one thing that it shows is that as a real estate industry, we need more love brands that can really connect and communicate in a certain way to the customers. So that's another important trend we see emerging.
Yeah.
And to the last one, if we go.
Yeah, and I think that's a tech dimension then. It's I mean, we're talking about tech-enabled organization, and maybe the real estate has been moving a little bit slower than some other businesses in this area. I mean, it's all about data intelligence, that you understand your customer, that you understand your asset, and maybe it's natural that it's moved a little bit slower since we have the physical building that needs to be connected. You always need some kind of hardware in order to get the data points, etc. But we feel it moving. It's moving much faster now, maybe pushed by all these macroeconomic trends with the energy crisis, with the corona crisis, with the ESG taxonomy pushing. So I think data and the ability to understand and analyze the building in your business becomes more and more important. So
absolutely.
I think, yeah, sorry.
So, if we go one step further, right, what we want to spend a bit time is what are the key benefits of a premier customer experience for a real estate company? So Emily, what is your take on this?
I think we've been into it, but just maybe it's more to summarize. I think, I mean, tenant satisfaction, to lower churn, to make sure that we actually elevate the customer experience, then maybe zoom out then a bit and look at the full customer journey in order to do that. And also connect with ecosystem around a building or a building block. And then we have the second part about the new revenue streams. I think everyone are trying to explore now, okay, so how can I be part of the future way of doing business within real estate and make sure that I don't lose the opportunity now and someone else kind of catches the opportunity that we see might be at hand. So I would say it's about, that's also about opening up, collaborating with others, and make sure to dare to explore a bit and see what really flies. And then the final step is optimization, to make sure that the customers feel that they enter, when they enter a building, they feel that it works seamlessly and it's a great experience, but also of course optimization on the inside, that you streamline your processes and that you get an efficient organization with as much automation as possible.
Right. So if we conclude, we see that obviously PropTech and then technology plays a crucial role in shaping the customer experience, right? And everyone is used to digital interactions from all the other apps and solutions in our daily lives. So why not to bring this kind of approach to the real estate? And if done correctly, with the PropTech solutions that are already on the market, real estate companies can digitally connect pretty much the whole tenant lifecycle, from listing a property, signing the lease, to day-to-day communication or paying the rent in a really user-friendly way. So I think that's the role of PropTech, to make it seamless, make it user-friendly, to benefit for all parties, the end users and the companies. Lastly, it's also important to embrace that the customer experience management is something that needs to be customized per building, per portfolio, per tenants, and obviously it also reflects the budget that the company has for all these activities. So that's something I believe it's really important to conclude and close this session with. I really hope that the RExperience platform will be successful in order to exchange a lot of knowledge, and that the market can move forward with all this inspiration and ideas that will be part of the following session. So I hope that you will enjoy it and that you will learn something new. And obviously, we will be very happy to also for all the feedback that you guys can share after the event. So that's to summarize. And again, I would pass the word to Andre to continue with the following program.
Okay, thanks, thanks, Lukas. Just we have one question from Andras here. Andras was asking if he could have some examples of the new revenue streams that was touched on in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. So if we think about this sort of topic of hotelization of all real estate classes and providing all amenities and events and space as a service, it means that we don't look as renting a space as the only source of revenue, but there are all these types of events or amenities such as shared rooms or bikes or dry cleaning service that can be provided through the services of the landlord, and that can be obviously a very important revenue stream for the landlord. So again, it's about being creative in what sort of things I can upsell also to the tenants through my menu or the business. And again, we are way past of the times where the space itself or only the square meters or units is the only source of the revenue. We are selling service, we are selling full holistic product to the market. And the apps or the digital platforms obviously are the easiest touch point of how you can offer these sort of things to visit both visitors and employees, residents, whoever is interacting with the building.
Okay, thanks a lot for your contributions, guys, and for this response. If there's one question for Amy or Lukas right now, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we will slowly transition to the next segment. Looks like there isn't. Okay. But everyone, if you want to share what was the biggest learning or takeaway from this, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Be really interesting to hear what the audience thinks. I want to highlight, for example, what Emmy mentioned, the customer experience starts way before entering the building and continues after the users spend their time in the building. I think that's a really interesting point of view. Okay, and we have our first panel discussion coming up. So if I can ask the attendees, Sarjane, George, Maria, Dmitry, and Dragana, please get ready. Make sure comfortable. Open your camera, open your microphones, please. And we'll start in 1 minute.
Morning.
Hello.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, George. I'll start slowly introducing, we have one more minute to start, but I'll start slowly introducing the topic and the key question that we'll be tackling in this next segment. So we have our first panel called 3 Customer Experience Dilemmas That Need Addressing in 2023. And we'll be talking about what tenants really want. We'll be talking about how landlords can justify higher rents and drive revenue while keeping tenants loyal and satisfied. We might touch on how does ESG fit into the customer experience and other things that matter to you, the audience. So already, if you have any questions in relation to this topic, please drop them in the chat and we'll try to make sure we address them. So let me start by introducing quickly the participants of the first panel. So we have Sarah Jane Osborne, Head of Workplace for UK and Europe at Avison Young. We have Konstantakopoulos, who is Head of Innovation and Ventures at Third Property. We have Dimitri Huygen, Director of Transformation and Integration at Xior Student Housing. And
good morning.
Dragana Marina, good morning, the Sustainability Research Lead for Continental Europe at CBRE.
Yes, hello.
Hello. We are also supposed to have Maria Hedge from Greystar, but I understand she's not on. Maria, are you with us by any chance? If not, we will start. Probably not. Okay, let's start. So look, rapid fire introduction for each person. Same 2 questions. What is your dream holiday destination? And then second question, 1 word, customer experience. What's the quickest association that you have if I say customer experience? Sarah Jane.
Oh, well, I'm in one of my dream holiday destinations. Thank you to the digital world. I'm joining you from my holiday in Porto, but it's very rainy and the UK is basking in sunshine. So I've made a bit of a mistake from a weather perspective. But I think I associate good customer experience with happiness, things that make me feel joy or make me happy. And we spend our life now looking at getting as much of the customer journey above the happiness line as we can. So yeah, happiness and joy. Delight, perhaps, is a good word.
Happiness. Okay. And good luck with the weather then.
Thank you.
So I'll go through kind of the order that I have here in terms of the attendees. So George, you're next.
Thanks, Andre. I've missed the first part of your question. If you could repeat.
Yeah, dream holiday destination.
Right. There is this remote island, which is one of the most remote islands in Europe, where I usually go, and I go there for suites of, and yeah, camp is free camping area.
What's the name of the island then for us, for everyone?
It's below Crete. It's called Haftor.
Okay. And
customer experience for me, I mean, words of association would be inclusion and consideration, practically taking on board and mapping out every single point of interaction with the users.
Okay, thanks. Dmitry.
Yeah, good morning. If you ask dream destination, I would say Mexico or something in South America with the family. And in wordings, I would go for satisfaction.
Makes sense. Perfect. And finally, Dragana.
I have to say I'm into winter. So I would pick any place where there is snow. I would always choose winter holidays over summer. I don't know. I just really enjoy skiing and snow. And for customer experience, if I have to choose one word, I think I would say engagement. That would be my word.
Okay. Yeah, I think those words definitely resonate with me as well. Okay, thanks for that. So let's kick off the discussion. What we've discussed in the preparation is, I'll start with you, Dragana. When we were preparing for this call, you mentioned that CBRE has an occupier survey, which is basically fresh off the press. So I wanted to start with that and ask, what are some highlights that you'd like to mention that relate to customer experience?
Yeah, that is true. We have mentioned that, and we actually CBRE conducts a number of different occupier surveys. I'm talking especially on a European level. The office occupier survey has been published this Tuesday, so just 2 days ago. We also do a logistics survey, capital investment survey, and etc. But specifically for office, I think a lot of the things that were mentioned when Amy and Lukas were talking is also visible in the occupier survey. So what we are seeing is that office as a value proposition for corporates is still hugely important. That's really important to attract and retain talent. But as Amy mentioned, she mentioned office building in Stockholm CBD. I happen to be located in Copenhagen, so I think it's very similar situation, but it is across Europe. Occupiers are struggling to bring their employees back to the office. So office really needs to add value to employees to offer something they don't have at home. And we see this especially in markets where commuting time is substantial. Copenhagen is maybe a bit different in that term because it's a small city, and 30% of people are using bike to commute. Acceptance of travel space is also lower than it would be in some other bigger cities. But what we are seeing with this occupier survey is that when occupiers are choosing location, then the accessibility of public transport, commuting time, that's really important. But when they're choosing a building in a specific location, then sustainability is super important. There are also many other interesting findings in our survey. I'm very happy to share this also with this group, and it's actually accessible on CBRE homepage for everyone who might be interested in reading the findings in more detail.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I feel like it'd be fair to give Sarah Jane, especially as you are focused on workplace. Do you have any comments to that? If we stay on the side.
Yeah, no, I mean, some really good points. It's absolutely true that we find that our occupier clients in the main are very keen to bring people back more frequently than the people are keen to be back in. And we all, as the curators of this product and the providers of this product, have to help them to get their people back in. So I think that it is difficult when there's a longer commute. We have to earn the commute, we have to earn the working lives. And for me, some of the things that make that land really well are the threshold experience. As people arrive, how do we help them to decompress? Because your memory of the last sort of few minutes of an event are more acute than your memory of the whole event sometimes. There's some quite good experiments around that. So if you give them a good threshold experience, a bit of decompression as they come in, what does that feel like? I mean, hotels do it with signature scents, for example. And I love that, the Jeff Bezos quote, if you want something to happen more, you take friction out of it. And if you want something to happen less, you put friction into it. So a sort of a frictionless arrival in a building where you kind of shrug off the commute is really quite important. And I think instead of thinking, have we got lockers, have we got coats, have we got this, have we got coffee, balancing out that user journey and making sure you know, where do people arrive, what are they seeing, what are they smelling, maybe also thinking about neurodivergence and whether you have a buzzy version of coming into the office as well as perhaps a quieter version of coming into the office. I'm seeing occupiers creating 2 different journey lines sometimes, so that if you're feeling a little bit kind of that you've had too much sensory stimulation that day, whoever you may be, you can come in a slightly quieter arrival route. But thinking of all of those conveniences, how you make that transition from the journey into your working day is really critical. And after all, nobody goes to a bad restaurant twice. You know, you're going to remember that threshold experience. I think that's really critical and part of our campaign to get people back in and to have a positive experience.
Okay, interesting points. Thanks a lot for that, ladies. Now moving on to you, George and Dimitri. You are on the residential side, so the side from which people have to go to the office. And I was wondering, any points on that from your point of view, and or so how does customer experience and changing requirements of customers apply to your world? Whoever wants to start.
Happy to go first. I mean, in the residential side, in terms of the customer experience, we are Synergies based in Manchester, UK. And I think one trend that we are seeing in regards of behaviors is that people like seem to be like more and more interested in healthy lifestyles, etc., etc. So one thing that we are noticing that is increasing is people's interest in quality of life. And we have also conducted a few research surveys and focus groups, etc., where obviously the functionalities of a building is very important, and both in regards of the individual spaces, the private spaces, but also in regards of the communal spaces. But one thing that we're definitely noticing is quite a strong interest in regards of the quality of living, in regards of like air filtration, how much light an apartment has, you know, the mattress, for example, etc., etc. So that is definitely something that we are observing that is increasing. On the side of that, and I think we're going to come to that later, so I'm going to keep the details, is definitely sustainability is also something that is like critically important in regards of the appetite of people to understand what the business is doing, but also to have support in regards of like how to be more sustainable in their living.
Okay, interesting. Definitely would be great to be able to come back to that. I think we will. Dimitri, what are you seeing from your side at Xior?
Well, let me first maybe explain Xior. So we are a stock exchange company in Brussels. We have today in operations 20,000 owned student rooms in 8 countries. And we've mainly built that portfolio through acquisitions, meaning that we have a very varied portfolio of buildings with communal areas, without communal areas, with beautiful commercial parts around, assets around it, etc. If you look on customer experience, what we are aiming to do now is to really break the islands from the countries and to bring that into one centralized platform, in which we have the baseline feel at home. We try to bring that baseline into throughout the whole organization. What does it practice mean today? To have a very strong presence in the building, to be seen by the clients, and really deliver what we promise, and to have as good as possible a very strong communication towards the tenants in terms of repair and maintenance, in terms of the connectivity, to really bring them together depending on what the tenants mainly are expecting today, let's say. Does that correspond a little bit on your question?
Yes, thanks.
Maybe secondly, if we look on what our tenants expect today, the first thing is very simple. It's extremely fast Wi-Fi to connect 5 to 6 devices as a student. The second point is that's a challenge, is affordability. And it's mainly linked to the third point, it's AAA location. So it's a very big challenge to find affordable buildings on a AAA location towards students and young graduates. The fourth is mainly service-driven properties. So to have additional services, because those students, or a part of the persona, let's say, not everyone, a part of the persona, they expect additional services, laundry, gym, catering, etc. For example, in Spain, we always have half and full board in terms of catering because it's related to Hotel Mama. They really expect that. It's completely different in Belgium and the Netherlands. Something else that changed over the last years is the flexible room typing, changing buildings and rooms to one, double, triple rooms to for us to increase revenue, but also for the students to save money to live together. And the other point is the impact of all the platforms which you have today. So we have to be present on the platforms where the students are to push the sales. I strongly believe today in TikTok, I think it can replace Google. It's less expensive. And it's one of the latest platforms that you still can use to really have big organic growth and impact. And then it was also already mentioned, everything of the sustainability to protect, let's say, the planet, but mainly in the reuse of social consciousness and also everything of healthy food. However, also must say, if you see the how students do waste management, it's terrible. If you go into our buildings at the end of the week, it's, in my opinion, really a shame. So if you ask them, do you want to have sustainability and sustainability, they always will say yes. And do you contribute? Then the reaction is very poor. So there is a lot of education that we constantly have to do towards the target group. So wrapping up a little bit on what we see as expectations of students in terms of a better customer experience.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Dimitri. I understand. So quick intermission. Still, to all the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. And I also understand that Maria Hedge from Greystar is now with us. Maria, are you available? Can you turn on your camera and microphone?
Hi, everybody. Apologies, I can't seem to turn my camera on, yes. But I'm not sure why I seem to have an issue with Zoom and my camera. So I know you keep on asking me to do that. I'm trying to get it sorted. Just bear with me. Yes, thank you for having me, and apologies for not being able to turn that on quite yet.
Okay, let's, so just to give you space as well, hopefully you'll be able to sort it out, but we were discussing what the office occupiers want, and then I don't know, I'm not sure if you heard, but George and Dimitri were discussing more on the residential side, what the residential tenants are expecting. Obviously, Greystar is a residential operator, so I was wondering if you had anything to add to what was discussed in the last few minutes.
Yeah, I guess I can really speak very much to sort of like the residential side of that, in terms of, I guess, a lot of my role and what I do at Greystar is to collect resident data through NPS surveys or focus groups, and really sort of understand what I guess residents want pre-moving in with us and what they want when they're with us. I think ESG is something that, you know, it's obviously a very hot topic at the moment in the sector, and something that I've been doing a lot of work on, and we've just employed two sustainability directors, one for our build to rent side of the business and one for our student side of the business. I think from a student perspective, the 18-year-olds that are coming through now definitely have, like we call it, greener eyes, but are definitely more concerned around ESG, what we do in terms of like charitable giving. And I think that's really important to note, because I think in previous years, the resident experience side with student had been very much around how you welcome students in, which is still very important. But I think people are very focused on their stay and what we're going to give back to the environment, which is something, you know, that we do try and actively do. I think in our build to rent side, residents definitely want to see more of that. I think they're more concerned around sort of like who we are as a company and what we deliver back. So I think there's a level of them maybe being consciously slightly older, having more of an understanding of kind of, you know, the business world and how that sort of works. But I would say post-COVID, the resident needs have definitely changed. People definitely now, I think, want more person-in-person contact. I know everybody developed huge resident apps during COVID to deal with sort of demand. I think we're seeing actually the usage of those apps fall off a bit and people wanting to have the human contact. So yeah, we've definitely seen a shift. In terms of ESG, people definitely want to see a bit more. And I think it's all about how you promote that. And equally, to a point made earlier, that people don't greenwash and come in and say they're doing everything and that they're doing it really well. I think residents want to see evidence of that and they want to be a bit involved. So they want to be able to give back as well. I think it's about giving people the opportunity to do so.
Sorry, I was muted. Really interesting point, actually. I want to kind of zoom in on that. And again, it ties back to what Dimitri mentioned also about, you know, the students being on the surface very environmentally conscious, but then maybe on the actual behavioral side, not so much. And I think, again, you mentioned ESG. ESG is on everybody's minds these days, and I'm sure it's very important to our audience. When we had a poll earlier, the majority is coming from the real estate industry, especially asset management. So I'm sure, you know, asset managers are dealing with that every day. And so I was thinking, if we look at, you know, how does ESG connect with customer experience? I guess in some ways we could say it's part of the S in ESG, of the social aspect. But I was wondering, you know, to these points that we discussed in the last few minutes. So if I could have, you know, all the panelists' opinion. So how does the S in ESG impact your business, and how does it relate to customer experience? And secondly, the other interesting point I think that we could touch on is how do we make the people actually involved practically then in the ESG overall? So even in the E, which is again, you know, they're our customers. How do we treat them as customers and make sure that they don't, you know, they actually act responsibly? So I think that's a really interesting dilemma that a lot of our audience will be facing. So as in ESG and customer experience, and, you know, involving the tenants in ESG as well. Let's go back to Dragana. What are your views on that?
Yeah, if I may, just to have a short comment on what Dimitri just said when he commented on the student behavior in different European markets. I think it was a really great explanation, Dimitri, and I think it just shows how important it is to know your tenants, because we're dealing with a lot of commercial real estate stakeholders that are active across the region. But as Dimitri points out, tenants are quite different, and their preferences, their priorities are different. And that's why I think that the mantra, knowing your tenant, is gaining ever more in importance.
How would you go about knowing your tenants, by the way?
Sorry?
How would you go about knowing your tenants?
Communication. I think, you know, the engagement, it's a two-way road. You have to speak with your tenants, because I think what is important in real estate, perspectives are so different. You know, a perspective of an occupier is different from the one from a property owner, of an investor. Our priorities are different, and that's normal, right? And our circumstances change. You know, occupiers are not always in the same situation. Maybe sometimes they struggle. Maybe sometimes they have difficult time recruiting. So as a landlord, you need to talk to your tenants. You need to understand what are their needs, what are their perspectives, how are they growing, what are the challenges they're facing, and how can you support them? And I think that's the key to success, just that efficient communication between parties involved. But to answer to your question in regards to ESG, I do sit a lot with ESG in commercial real estate. And as you mentioned at the beginning, we have conducted a number of different analyses and surveys in relation to ESG. We were talking a lot about offices. We have conducted one European office study in November last year, also in 2021. That was the same, just with a 1-year span, where we actually can see that occupiers are willing to pay higher rental levels for offices with sustainability certifications. And I'm speaking about BREEAM, LEED, DGNB, and similar. But we also did a global ESG survey at the beginning of this year, where we could really see that the S in ESG that you mentioned, Andre, is super important, meaning that occupiers and investors are willing to pay a premium for buildings where there is focus on S, meaning that there is focus on well-being and mental health of employees. Social aspects of the buildings are super important, accessibility of the building, but that doesn't mean only that it's, you know, the commuting time is shorter, or there is a public transportation nearby. That means also that the building design is inclusive, because you have also different occupier mix. You maybe have employees with disabilities, or you have to take account of the different age groups and different aspects. And I think that is increasingly important. Also because for occupiers, their employee mix is their biggest strength, and I think in a lot of markets it's really difficult to attract and retain talent. So you really need to offer them something and offer them values, so corporate values that they can identify with. We are seeing that, especially for younger people, it's super important that they share the values with the company they're working for. And in that, I would slightly disagree with Dimitri. I think that actually that the younger people are honestly focused on sustainability. I think their approach to sustainability is much more serious than maybe is in my generation. I'm slightly older than the younger generations, and I think they have the power to change things. And I think because of that, because of their preferences and priorities, occupiers are reacting to that, and they are changing also their value proposition to the employees.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. You heard it, Dmitry. Just remind them that they are super, the students are super environmentally conscious, and so they should recycle better. Jane, what do you think about this point? What are you seeing?
Right. There is a real massive environmental imperative for the S in ESG, and that is that before the pandemic, our buildings, if you take Monday to Friday and sort of 9 until 5:30, were already massively underoccupied, and now we have the midweek mountain, and we have a difficulty smoothing the week in terms of occupancy. So we have these giant energy consuming, albeit getting greener and greener, buildings that are underutilized. It's a really underutilized resource, and one of the ways that the S can support that is by allowing the community to use the underutilized buildings in quiet times. Now, whether that's your own colleagues and their wider families and friends, or whether that's the community around the buildings, we're working with a lot of clients who are sort of saying, I don't know, let's take an example. If I have an auditorium, for example, that I use for big business presentations in the day, why would I not use that as a cinema for out of hours if I can solve some of the security and access requirements? And actually, what everyone's been speaking about today is the consumerization of real estate at every touch point, from a residential point of view, from a retail point of view, from a corporate real estate point of view. We are facing into, we used to perhaps face into the economic buyer as the consumer. And I think because the economic buyer's world has changed, we're now having to bear in mind all of the end users. I mean, they're in the real estate, the preferences on, the mattress or the air quality, or the light, the natural light, and as consumers of real estate, it's that experiential consumption that people are looking at. What does it mean for me? How does that enrich my day? So I think we're looking at, wherever we touch real estate, we're looking at people buying on values, people buying on their own experiences, and that increased consumerization. So yeah, that S is the social internally to the organization, but also externally. So how is my organization using its assets when I'm not in them? You know, does that align with my values? What other experiences are there for me to socialize with the community? And actually you see people looking at the amenity rich environment outside of the physical asset as well. So this kind of real kind of immersion, experiential immersion is really important.
Right. So it sounds like that for you and your clients, the S in ESG is about bringing the experience and making sure the assets are utilized as much as possible. Maybe for
in the ideal world, it's recorded. Maybe in the ideal world, the ESG components are part of evaluation. Because today, bottom line, the valuation is still about yields, just based on, let's say, P&L. And the E, S, and G components are, according to my experience today, they're not involved in an acquisition. If we really want to change something with the industry, the valuation should be taken into account those three key pillars. And that's a key change opportunity, I would say, within the market. Certainly today with the inflation and the increased interests, it could be a game changer. But for that, the industry needs to step up. And I agree with Dragana in terms of the young students, they care about sustainability. But what we see in the behavior today in buildings, it's getting worse instead of better. Maybe another example that I could give, we did a very interesting acquisition with Basecamp. They have in a whole educational track what they did. It's called Base Life, in which in every property we have students. They're called the Base Buddies. They are trained, they're monitored, and they have certain KPIs that they have to organize 6 events a month. They have to do the reception, the welcome desk, etc. And to capture a lot of information from the building in order to avoid that we have escalations in reviews, for example, like Google, and really solve problems within the building. We also see that the safety and security is decreasing. The atmosphere in the building is much higher, and it will contribute to the retention. Also meaning that the value of your building and the quality of your building will remain on a higher level. It's a very interesting concept. It's quite simple, but you really have to do it in a very consistent way. So we are now looking how we could roll it out across the entire portfolio.
Okay, so just to understand correctly, what you're saying is that for Xior, the part of the S in ESG is, let's say, involving student representatives in driving community safety, etc. What are some other things that where, you know, how Xior thinks about the S in ESG?
Yeah, we do student surveys and we try to communicate that as good as possible towards the tenants. But we're making a huge transformation with the organization. 1 year ago, we did not have a marketing team. We did not have a digital team. We didn't have a business applications team. So we're implementing that right now on a global scale throughout the organization. So it's a big change. So we really have to do it piece by piece and really celebrate the successes that we're creating. So it's starting, and it's a kind of moving organization going into the direction from a financial product towards a kind of hospitality-driven organization.
George,
yeah, I mean, a few points
from
my side. I mean, I'm going to start from the point Dimitri made about people saying A but actually doing B. And that, I think that is across a number of different things. And I think, like, if you reflect, we probably all do it, you know, if we are being asked something in a survey, we say that we're going to do something or suggest, and then what we are actually doing as behaviorally is different. One thing in regard of sustainability and, for example, waste management, for our tenants and the surveys that we've run, is that people expect some form of support, if you want, in regards of living more sustainably. Now that could be the using technology to provide them with data so they know their consumption, for example. So then if they're aware of that, then they can reflect and they can potentially decrease their consumption. Gamification around that is something that we are looking into, and how can you create that sense of responsibility, but in a way that people feel motivated to do something. On the other hand, it's not just about data, it's also practically what interventions do you introduce so that people, for example, can recycle. I've lived personally, and also one of the things that we are doing is that, you know, having bins that are already set for separation of waste between carbon, glass, and general waste, or even food. You know, there are things that we can do. And coming back to the ESG point, I think it's something that no matter how much effort you put in as a business to achieve your goals, if you don't take your customers with you, there is no way you're going to achieve your goals. They're part of the buildings you operate. So they need to be on board. They need to be able to understand why they need to do X or Y or Z. When it comes to commercial, we're mostly operating in the residential area, but we also have some commercial units and properties that we're managing. So one of the things that we are doing there, and back to the point that Ragana made about knowing your tenants, we have initiated with our asset managers in every commercial property that we have initiated a process in which we run monthly meetings to discuss sustainability specifically. We are trying to understand the goals that each of our customer has in regard of their sustainability and in regard of their business and what their business is doing for sustainability. And then we're trying to create an asset strategy which supports them in their goals, but also supports the asset to move towards a more sustainable future, really, in regard of like the asset being more sustainable. So these are some things that we are doing on our side in regard of trying to address.
May I jump in with a very quick behavioural nudge tip to your point of interventions?
Go for it.
One thing that I've discovered is when we rename commercial waste is often called general waste, and then you have recycling. The minute you change general waste to the word landfill, you find that the non-recycled waste leaving a building reduces very substantially, because people can very immediately connect what they're putting in there has no further intervention, it's on them. I absolutely agree that what we intend to do and what we do changes depending how pressurized we are for time at the moment. I've seen that in my sort of 420 somethings and their approach to waste. But just a top tip, if everyone changes general waste to landfill, you really help with a nudge. And we've seen that change the amount of waste that doesn't get recycled in commercial buildings.
Great. So I really I think what's great for the audience is that we're getting a lot of various tips what different panelists are doing. So we have nudges, we have communication, we have technology and using data, gamification. So I think really a lot of ideas. By the way, Maria, you know, Greystar is a huge operator. So what do you do and your scale? By the way, we're slowly running out of time. So audience, please put your questions in the comments. We'll be wrapping up in 7 minutes. But yeah, Maria, in terms of involving your customers in the ESG, what does Greystar do?
Yeah, I think the big point that I've picked up from that really is the S, as you were referring to earlier, so the social and well-being aspect of ESG. We do a huge amount with our residents to engage them and ask them, you know, that the thing here is asking them what they want and asking how we can make that better. And then when people do respond to those questions, kind of like a "you said we did" campaign, I think is really important. So from staff surveys to resident surveys, when people give you feedback, it's really important that you give sort of a plan afterwards of how you're going to deal with that feedback. So I pick up on the social element a bit in terms of well-being, and I'll pick up on student as well as build to rent or multifamily with that. Is it's really important to, one, look after your residents, but two, how you communicate what you're doing for them outside of the norm is really the main point here. So how do residents know that you're going to look after them? Are there places they can go and sit with friends to have those quiet chats? And that's more on the student side. You know, are you delivering a support system that allows maybe international and domestic students or residents in build to rent to feel comfortable?
I think we just lost Maria. Do you have everyone else?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
here
working.
still.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. She might have lost Maria. Let's see if she can make it back. But we have 5 more minutes. So to stay on time, we don't have any questions from the audience. So what I have here as one of the reserved questions that might be interesting is if anyone has any failure stories to share, what to avoid, eye-opening moments, and that could be from your operation or maybe from your clients in the case of Dragana and Sarah Jane. So anything that comes to mind that you'd like to potentially share with your audience where maybe customer experience initiative didn't go the right way or the way you expected?
I can jump in with one. I think that tech enabling the welcome experience for customers to buildings is a great one, but it can't be at the expense of a friendly face. So I've sort of arrived to support clients and found that yeah, that's great if you've got your QR code and things like that, but they've got rid of the big desk because they want to have hosts of a space, but the hosts of the space aren't trained to jump up and help in the same way. They think they're there to troubleshoot if the tech doesn't. So there has to be an education piece around what does it mean if you're making a transition, and how are you integrating technology, and how does that become part of the offer as opposed to a replaced offer. What do other people do to welcome you to the space? So that's one that I've seen clients getting a little bit wrong in their transition, I would say, and people feeling not so welcome to the space. And on the opposite side, a joy would be a cycle up lane, seeing buildings starting to have differentiated experience for active commute, where you cycle up and it's really easy breezy because you cycle into the building on a ramp, and your experience, your welcome experience, your showers and things, it's elevated. It's not just kind of wet room lockers, dry room lockers, it's straighteners, it's hair dryers, it's products, it's easy access, so that you feel really special for arriving in that way. So that's a kind of both a failure and a gold medal.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Thanks for sharing that. A lot of practical tips coming in.
I would just jump in there and just say that I totally agree with that in terms of the replacement of tech and face-to-face interaction. I think it's really important to explain that's what's happening when you enter an asset rather than the replacement of it, because I think face-to-face and a simple hello or a welcome smile, I think, goes a really long way. So yeah, rather than a replacement, I think it's all about the ease of being there rather than totally replacing sort of the human element. So yeah,
and user preference as well, isn't it? Or even, can I help you? Have you got a QR code? Would you prefer to register like that, or would you like to come and chat to me? So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely the option. I completely agree.
Great.
Anything to add from the rest of the panel?
Yeah, maybe on our side of Xior, so we undergo a complete digital transformation and organizational transformation. I would say the key to success is the real consistent support of top management. And because you have to repeat week after week the same message to get everyone in that direction. And secondly, to have a kind of buy-in of key people. And thirdly, to really get rid of people that are not willing to change, because we have a lot of them. It's very important to have the ownership, have the mandate, and also really have the guts, I would say, to go against them and really to push and to go against CEO, CFO, everyone that sees it in another way, based on data, facts and figures, and explain really why you want to change what should be the impact and the result of it. It's a very bumpy ride, but I can say if you get a result, it's beautiful.
So that's more on the internal alignment side, which I
Yes.
think it might be almost its own topic, how to set up the internal alignment so that it supports digital transformation, customer experience, right?
Good point.
Yeah, but it's very fundamental. If you don't have the people, because people make a difference in digital transformation, you can have the best tools. If the people are not having confidence and not cooperating, you don't realize anything, in my opinion. And it's really important to get the ownership from the people that support you in the execution.
And that's part of the change management piece always round, isn't it? And I've seen increasing when we are supporting clients to relocate between commercial real estate buildings. The change management piece is a hugely fundamental part of the success of the new venture. However perfect the new environment might be, without that change management, you can't optimize its use and you can't optimize its value. So I think, yeah, internally and also just amongst, you know, all colleagues in CRE moves, for example, change management really critical.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, yeah, in real estate, that's what we're seeing as well. That's what Dimitri echoed. That's basically what the industry is still going through right now as we speak.
If I may just add something, I admire Dimitri's strong opinions. I just want to add on what Sarah Jane just said about change management. Of course, change management is important, but what I'm seeing is very often it's very high level. So as an employee, you really need to understand what your company is trying to achieve and where's your place in it and what's your role in it. And I think often that is not put on the level of people who actually have to execute, because it's super high level. And that goes, for example, let's think about net zero commitments that almost, I suppose, all of our companies have and a lot of occupiers are having. But that's just very, you know, very distant. You need to put it down. You need to make actions that people can relate to and say, okay, this is what I need to do and this is how I need to do it to help my company achieve this goal and that goal. I don't think that's always that structure is always in place, and that's hindering maybe the progress.
I would completely echo of what Rogana said. I've recently completed a certification in regards of driving change, and you know, one of the things that many times we don't include or consider is that whole piece of stakeholder engagement in the process. And by stakeholders is from people that are even in junior positions up to the leadership. They all need to be in the same room, really, if possible, or in the same virtual room, if you want, in order to be able to discuss and understand why something's happening and what is their role in that, especially the people that are going to be actively working on it, actioning it. And, you know, the process is that you will always have people that may not be convinced, or you will always have people that are the naysayers, and you need to include them 100%, and you need to figure out why, because they might have valuable input, etc., etc. So I think that's something that many times puts plans off, like timelines go off or whole projects go off, because there is not enough consultation or engagement between the different parts of the business, departments, management levels, that they haven't worked together, they are not aligned. Therefore, the project is not really cohesive. So then it ends up sometimes even like things go very wrong, or it drags for way too long, or the outcome of the project is not what was expected. So yeah, I think including everyone in the process and explaining the big picture as well as the details in regards of where they're going to be involved. I think for me that is critical, important.
Thanks for that, George. I'm going to jump in because we are past our time. Thanks for it. It looks like we can think about a follow-up discussion just purely on digital transformation and change management. That could be almost its own segment.
Yeah.
But so for the time being, thanks a lot to the panelists. They are here, so audience, please feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions to continue the discussion. And right now, firstly, you have a poll, so feel free to let us know what was the biggest takeaway or biggest aha moment that you had from this panel discussion. And we'll be moving on to the next segment, which is a case study with CA Immo. So I will ask Lukas Baksa Jan Baksa from CA Immo. So Jan Baksa is head of asset management for CA Immo Czech Republic, and he will present a case study on bringing amenities, design, and technology together to create today's human-centric spaces. CA Immo is a listed real estate landlord that owns real estate around the German-speaking countries and Central and Eastern Europe. So we'll slowly move into that. It would be great to hear from the audience what they took away from the last panel. So, Jan, do we have you on?
Good morning, everyone. Hello.
Good morning. Welcome, Jan. I will ask Melis to. No, okay. So Melis will share the screen. Melis will share the screen of Jan's presentation. And Jan, so please, anytime you want to change slide, just let her know. Just say next slide, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I will try to keep it short and efficient to make a place for your questions. I hope the connection will stay stable as we are in online world since 2020, I think. What COVID brings to us. My name is Jan Baksa. I'm head of asset management in CA Immo. I would like to talk about our project in Prague called Riverside Karlín, previously named River City Prague, which consists of 5 buildings and 2 resi. And with this campus, we are doing something to combine new technologies to work with people to bring improvements in the buildings and try to innovate to be at least not the last, if not the first in office building sectors. CA Immo, as was mentioned, is based in Vienna. It's on the stock market. It's placed mostly in Munich, Berlin, Frankfurt, Warsaw, Budapest, Prague, and Vienna. We have almost 400 employees. Please next. In the Czech Republic, we are on some 7% of the overall portfolio. All of our buildings have green certification, LEED or DGNB, and we also, with 2 buildings, have WELL Platinum certification. I would today talk about Karlín, what is a neighborhood part of the city center, what you can see here with the red spot. And please next. As we were one of the first building with Danube House, you see it on the very west, very left side in this part, which was very harmed by catastrophic floods in 2002. After that, the Karlín city part was revitalized very much. After almost 21 years, it's very proud to be there, and the city quarter is absolutely different story with plenty of opportunities, amenities, pubs, office hubs, with very attractive residential part, just 10 minutes walkway distance from the city center. And we were at the early beginning since 99, starting to build the Danube House and finished 2003, then continue on the east. You maybe see it's the River City area marked with the red dots around. And we have approximately 80,000 of square meters, 50 tenants, and 5,000 of retails. Please, next. When I'm talking about 8,000 square meter of offices, it's not only about to feed the clients with canteen on some other operators. It's also about leisure, about free time, about other services. So it was for us very important to create some retail mix to combine the retails to fulfill all expectations our tenants, mostly from IT services and professional business services, requires. And finally, we've filled all of our vacant retail units, including new properties, Mississippi House and Missouri Park. Some of the retails are not opened yet. Fit out is ongoing, but anyway, in the end, we are trying to have combination of all services which should be necessary and needed. Please go on. It's not only about fixed retail services. We as active asset managers are trying to participate on the live, not only in our buildings, but also in Karlín. Every year now, I think we have 2 years already finished successfully. We built a river rink, what was a skate bar, including place for sledging, not only for our clients, but it was freely opened. Also, schools were going there. Ice hockey teams time to time book the place to play and so on, and build up nice space for relax, to stay, and some opportunity to meet people also during winter. Please, next pictures inside the slide. When it comes the sun and next, then there are other opportunities to stay on the riverbank, as we have some, let's say, formal and less formal places to spend the time, as there is a little theater called Přístav, like Haven or Haber, and then there are other pubs or only seating where you can stay, where you can enjoy the Vltava riverbank and commute. Please, next. As for us, it's crucial to fulfill all expectations of the tenants during the day. So we are trying to improve the greenery, improve all public sites. Now we are starting with a huge landscaping project, which would, after 21 years, implement new features in the area. And yes, it's also, you maybe see on the very right down corner, open bar in container, which serves the informal seating and which allows our clients to spend the time not only during the morning and noon, but also in the afternoon, and with some dancing lessons or running lessons allow our clients to stay a bit longer, what is good. And if I may ask for next slide, what is not very typical, but on the next slide you will see that we are trying to organize events also in the evenings, or at least to allow them. So our coffee called Mojo, with African style of the design, allows to be open outside, to have their grill, bar, barbecues and so on. So that's very appreciated by our tenants, and yes, that's what active asset managers should do to have them happy. As we were outside, let's go to inside. We revitalized one of our large atrium of Nile House, one of our buildings, just in the middle. And it meant to a little bit horror atmosphere, to make it alive, make it nice, implement wooden parts, and work with greenery, of course, what means, and it brings daily life in the building. And the atrium, fortunately, is almost full during workday hours. Friday is weaker, you know, one of also effect of the COVID time. I would kindly ask you, as one of our marketing strategy was to go into WELL certification and to accent the inner conditions of the offices, as we are really working hard to have their good air quality, good biophilia, good acoustics, very good temperature and air conditions and other features which are required not only but by WELL certification, but in any aspect needed for efficient work and then efficient break. So please, if you can turn on one of the videos. If not, no matter, we can then continue. So thank you. This was quite a very short video, which shows that we are working hard to let people feel very well. And then came COVID. What COVID times changed, every one of you knows. I would just point out that we are still with figures not anymore on the occupancy of the buildings, which was there in 2019. I would say more inhabitancy than occupancy, because here we have some figures from American cities where you see that during the end of 2021, they still stayed on 50%. Actually, depending on the building and business sectors prevailing in the office building, so we are in between 70 and 90%, but never reached 2019 figures. We also are challenging if our office buildings are safe for working. We proved very much to check whether our air conditioning is healthy, whether there are some points which are risky for viruses and whatever there. In the end, we found out that the most dangerous aspect regarding COVID and others are people. So using some criteria, it helped people are not afraid to go back to the offices. Anyway, they are not obliged to, and that's the challenge, not only of their employees, our employers, our clients, but also of us to motivate them to go back in the offices, to show them that offices will not harm them, and then there are activities, there are amenities, and no one, I think, can fulfill all well criteria with his home office desk, biophilia, air, humidification, temperature, whatever. So the question is how to attract the people, how to motivate them to go back. Here we have chart which shows how the occupancy goes within our 7 buildings during the time, as Mississippi, Missouri developments were finished in the mid of 2021. So there is really not to show too much in this case, but we were able to turn back with the figures, and we try to monitor the people, how they are in the offices, also to optimize the buildings, because after COVID came energy crisis, and energy prices, especially in the Czech Republic, rised 4 times. And if you can imagine what does it make with operational costs, it was very challenging for us to optimize the buildings as hard as possible, and also to allow people to retain the quality. Please, next. So with in cooperation with our property app provider Spaceflow, we are trying to activate the people. We are trying to send them announcements, communicate, commute, and network not only in between them, but also in between the retailers and them. We are trying also to implement amenities. Please, next. Because time to time, it can happen that you forgot in your home your iPhone charger, or you need some USB cable, or you would like to go on ping pong or do yoga 4 times. So it's quite well that our clients can use umbrellas in the building and so on. Please, next. What was more challenging for us was the motivation to shift our digitalization in the buildings. So we implement first digitalization package in Pile House. We tried to have mobile access, which would be firstly very safe. On the second hand, which would be maintained by the clients, not our security staff. Please, next. So we work hard to have their new platform where tenants can easily access their virtual cards, their normal access cards or registration plates of their cars, and they can easily modify who from their employees can access which doors, which parking, and so on. So this works, it helps, including new CCTV system, new parking system, and so on. Please, next. With parking system, there were more challenges as we are also have some visitors parkings which are public. We also faced a new challenge, which means that people still want to use coins and papers to pay, but they would like to also pay with their cell phones and also with payment cards, debit cards. So that means all of the technologies in one place have to work, have to be reliable, and also we have to prove some other challenges. And please, next. And I think that's all. I hope I did not cross the time frame, and feel free to ask whatever you want. In any way, wish you a beautiful weekend then after.
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Jan. We still have some time. So again, everyone, if you have any questions to Jan on their case study on River City in Prague, please put them into chat now. I actually have 2 questions. So the first one is, it looks like you have done quite a lot of things in River City. I was wondering, if you have started over, what you would have done differently? Kind of what is the learning experience from setting up the project to be more customer and community focused?
Okay, first of all, as I mentioned, we as active asset managers are holding buildings longer than it's usual. So with typical asset management exit after 3, 5, 6, 7 years, it's hard to organize hard capex items and to invest more in the space, as you don't see the cost back regarding new leasing. That will new tenants appreciate it very much in the long-term horizon. We see it well. So digitalization and inner conditions of the premises are for us crucial. So we try to explain our tenants that if they would have perfect inner office space, they would be much efficient than with people. Anyway, if they have a huge sick days fund, it's for them well, but anyway, you would like to see them in the office, and you have to provide them with high quality space. That's the target, and we are trying to looking around which technologies are coming, which are good to be used. Actually, we are working very hard on EU taxonomy regarding BMS systems, data monitoring, data benchmarking, and so on. And in cooperation with Czech Green Building Council, I think it's 5 or 10 years target to have it on the perfect way, but not going much forward.
Okay, and then maybe one more question. Just curious, when you showed the plan of the project with the list of amenities, I was, for example, personally surprised that I've seen 2 dentists. I want to ask, is there an amenity which kind of surprised you? For example, like, is there something that you were surprised that tenants were using a lot compared to your expectations, or maybe not at all compared to your expectations? Was there anything kind of unusual for you in that way?
Hard question. I was quite surprised about how tailor services are favorite. I would say this is most hidden retail in the area. But anyway, after I think the lady is there since 2011. Everyone wants to go there because they know that she's very nice, performing very well for good prices, so that works. Our fresh bar is very successful. I think it's part of a huge franchise net, but anyway, this small retail is a family project, so lady and her son, they are working very hard and can modify the offer for us, for our clients, and it's also very good to cooperate. And about the not successful one, very much I'm still expecting about start of the wine shop. It's emerging now, so let's see how they will continue. I'm very curious how yoga studio will go on. This is the fit out which is actually made and not finished yet. And also I'm pretty curious about the new retail, which would be nice to smell every morning, because there should be some bakery implemented and so on. So very curious how this will happen.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We still have a few more minutes, so I have one last question really here, which is how have you worked with tenant opinions, I guess, when designing the offer of services and amenities? Like, to what extent were we asking them for, what they're missing, what they want to have in the scheme, and how did it work for you?
We are trying to communicate daily, almost, but as asset managers, me personally, I'm meeting each of the tenant once a year at least, so I know roughly and asking what they are willing to. And for me, it's hard to make an average from the requests. Like, some of them would like to see bike service shop, some of them would like to see their cinema in summer, and so on. So to point out what is needed, it's I think park and huge green facilities, and that's what we are working just now. I think would be open at the end of June.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for the case study and tuning in today. So we are now concluding the first part of RExperience. And we'll have a half an hour lunch break / networking session if you want to stay the whole time. But I will definitely say do come back for the rest, because we have 2 more case studies, which will be more residential focused from NREP and Orange Capital Partners. And we have a panel discussion with a lineup of great guests, which will be moderated by James Dearsley. So it's definitely not like the second part will be a snooze. It won't. So do come back. When you are back, by the way, you'll be greeted by Melis, who will take you through the rest of the event. And so thanks a lot for being here so far, and looking forward to seeing you in the rest.
My name is Morten. I'm the COO of Juli Living, which is part of the NREP and Urban Partners Group. I'm very happy to be invited to this meeting. So thanks for Spaceflow for the invitation. Unfortunately, René could not join. He's very sick, so I'll do it by myself. I hope that is that's okay. But what we have with us today, or what I have with me, is a topic which we call easing customer lives while driving market-leading asset performance. It is a pretty broad topic, but I hope it makes sense after this presentation. So I think we're ready to go to the next slides. First of all, I'll just give you a short introduction of who is Juli Living, and then after that we'll go into the more exciting stuff, which is the case study I have with me. So if we show this one, then Juli Living, we are part of the Urban Partners Group, and it might be that name is new to some of you. It's also a new launch that we did a few weeks ago, where what was previously known as NREP and the NREP group has now been relaunched to the Urban Partners Group, which is consisting of 4 different investment verticals, where NREP being the legacy part of our business, so to say. So that is the real estate private equity, which is probably also the one that most of you know. Within NREP, we are in the living business line, and we are the biggest team in that. And Juli Living is the model and the team that is operating the assets that are then being acquired and invested from the investment team. So when something has been invested, we come in, we operate the assets, and we take them over until they are exited. So that is what we do. Through my case study, you will also get a more thorough understanding of our operating model, actually. We are in 3 countries, so Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. We are more than 50 employees. We expect to be more than 70 by the end of this year, actually, so we are growing quite a lot. We are operating around 200 assets, including the pipeline for this year and next year. And yet that yields around 14,000 units, around 1 million square meters, and 4 billion euros in value. So quite a significant size, actually, and also we have grown quite a lot, as mentioned, and we are starting to getting this critical mass and also really getting the synergies by being this large. So that is really, really exciting. So that was shortly who we are. Now to the more exciting stuff, that is the case study. And I would actually like to start the case study by taking one step back and look at the real estate or residential industry in general, because that is also how we started our model a few years ago. And we looked at the industry and saw something that was pretty classic or pretty conservative, but also in some ways pretty old-fashioned. We also spoke a lot with the tenants living in the buildings, and they were perceiving this industry as pretty arrogant and not something that was there for them and something that creates safety for them. That is also what we try to show on the left side, where in the top you would have the owners owning the building, doing the investments. They expect their assets to generate a stable cash flow in order to do a good investment and have a good investment yield. What was normally done, at least in the market that we operate in, is that they didn't have anything to do with the tenants. They were usually outsourcing the operation of the buildings to a third-party administrator. And then the administrator would then be in dialogue with the tenants and doing all of the administration operation of the assets. The problem with this setup, at least in our view, was that as the owners were having a requirement to a fixed and stable cash flow over time, that also meant that the OPEX that the administrator had to play with, or the budget that the administrator had to play with, was limited and constrained from the beginning. So they could not do more from the customers, they could not do big improvements and innovate. That was at least our view. And that was the problem and what we tried to like to change actually. So that is what we are doing on the right-hand side. We have designed our setup to be customer-centric and have designed it with customers in mind and with customers first, so to say. We don't call it tenants, we call it customers, because that is, I think it's an important wording that we don't see them as tenants, but customers and see them at the same level as we are on. So the way we do it is that we still are the owners, or the investors from the NREP funds are the owners, and they should still get a good investment yield and a good cash flow over time. But the way we do it is that we have not outsourced all of the jobs to a third-party administrator. We have insourced the key services that can create value for the customers and create a difference for the customers, but also create safety and comfortability for the customers. We're doing that in-house because we think we can do it better, to be brutally honest, versus a third-party administrator. Then the customers in the end will also experience a better product, a better service, but also more flexibility in the setup compared to what we see as the more classical methodology. On paper, this might sound more expensive, but that's actually not really the case. We see by doing it like this, we see OPEX savings on our assets because we do it in-house and we only have to pay salaries and don't have to pay a big fee for an administrator to do it. We also see an upside on the rent level because you get a product that is offering more than just a building, so to say. We also have all the services surrounding. So by having that, we can actually charge a small premium compared to the classic methodology because the product is better and you get much more value for money, although the rent might be a little bit higher. So the investment upside is also there by doing it like this, at least in our view. So that's the thought and how we started out. On the next page, we have then tried to highlight or show how we then do it actually. So what tasks are we insourcing and what digital tools are we applying to do it in an efficient and good way? And the boxes are coming up one at a time. The first being asset management, which is actually not, asset management is the first thing we have insourced, and that is actually not that unique in the real estate business. I think many of the owners have asset management in-house, but that is also something we have, and that is actually pretty key for us because the asset management team are the ones responsible for driving the asset performance, make sure that we have the right agreements with the various suppliers, doing strategies for the assets and business plans for the assets. So they are very critical in the assets performance. They are then in close dialogue with the teams that you see here. So the first one being the sales and letting team that we have insourced. The sales and letting team are, you can say, letting out our apartments, both in the lease-up projects, so the new assets, but also for the standing assets if there's a reletting situation. They are there to make sure that our assets do have 100% or close to 100% in occupancy rates, and they are also expert in setting the right rent levels. They are then equipped with the CRM system, that is what we have on the right, in order to have all the critical information about the customers structured in a digital way, so they can advise the customers and have the information at hand. So that is a critical system for them to perform. The next team, or the next task we have insourced is the customer service. So customer service is also really, really important because this team is the one creating comfortability and safety for the customers. If they have any questions or have any issues in the apartment, they can always call us, write to us if we are there or if they need help from our side. So that is a really important team. They have also access to the CRM system so they can see all the key information about the customers, but they're also equipped with this digital ticketing system so we can see what kind of tickets we normally have for a certain asset, but also over time, what tickets and how do we handle them in a good way. So we are always learning by applying this digital ticketing system. Then the next task is marketing and community. So we have also insourced that for two reasons, so to say. The first one being marketing. They are a key enabler for the sales and letting team actually to perform. So they are generating the leads to our assets. And they're doing that by a range of things. They are doing our webpage where we have all the assets and available apartments. They are also doing classical marketing activities like campaigns and SEO optimization and stuff like that. But they're really enabling the sales and letting team to perform, basically. We also have, when a lead has then become a customer, we have the community efforts. So we want to enable communities on our building in order to boost the social sustainability and have a good life together with others, basically. We do that from having dedicated community managers on the sites where it makes sense. So they are facilitating communities building up, they're doing events, and you can say talking with the customers on the site. That doesn't make sense on all assets. Some assets are more simple, you could say, but we still need to do something community in order to have a great product surrounding it. Here we are doing it in a more digital way, where we have a customer app, where the app is actually facilitating the community. So through the app, the customers can talk to each other, they can make groups, they can see events or make events. We can also communicate to them through the app and facilitating the community in that way. So in a digital way. That is then supplemented with our automated mail system. So if we need to communicate with all the customers in one easy way per asset, then we have an automated mail setup where we can easily communicate with them. Lastly, facility management, we have also insourced that. And that is the more technical aspect of our business, so to say. So they make sure all our assets shine and have the technical requirements in order. They are also the ones driving the sustainability agenda. We want to be climate neutral by 2028. So they are doing all the improvement programs and all of that work in order to make that happen by 2028. So really, really an important team as well. So that was the services. I've actually not talked that much about the assets. And the assets are, you can say, the foundation of everything that we do. So when we have the assets you see that NREP have are actually pretty unique, and we are not afraid to push the boundaries in the markets and try some new concepts. All of our assets have a very high quality requirements, and we have a building program to make sure that happens, of course. They should all be as sustainable as possible as well, in order to tap into our sustainability agenda I just discussed or just talked about. But we're also trying or testing out new concepts in order to develop urban environments, actually. So I think on this page you can see some really, really good examples on that and innovative concepts. I think one very good case in point here could be the UN-17 that you can see to the upper left. This is an asset where we are trying to address all the 17 sustainability goals from UN, and doing that in a building, actually. I think that's a really, really cool and a unique approach in order to address sustainability. And I think that's a case in point, at least from our side. You can also see a lot of other examples, but I think the UN-17 is a case in point. Yeah, that was a very, very short the case study that we have with us. I know it was very, very simple and high level, but maybe it could give some reflections or maybe inspiration. I'm at least happy to hear any questions or reflections if there is any.
Thank you, Morten, for this. So we have one question so far from the audience, and Andreas asks, where does property management sit?
Property management. So can we elaborate a little bit? So the asset management is what we have in our, you can say, team. So that is driving the asset performance and the responsibility of the assets. The property management, I'm not sure it's, is it that was meant by the question, or was it something else?
I believe they are asking about the location. Andreas, if you can clarify what you, like, if you can open it up a bit.
Sure. Now, you usually say asset management, property management, facility management, and on your chart, I didn't see the property management, like who does the small leasing, who takes care of putting together the annual statements for energy consumption for all these costs, and like, you know, the operational interface between asset management and facility management.
Good question. So we are using both our you can say infrastructure from NREP, who has a lot of this technical aspects of the property management, and here we have the building program and all the associated links with that. We are also on the energy consumption and the energy management, if that was what you meant. That is also what our FM team is doing. So they are doing the energy management, the FM team. So that is also something we do.
So you basically no external advisors whatsoever, or no external party working between tenants and yourself.
The only area where we are outsourcing, because we are outsourcing a little bit to a third-party administrator, and that is only for the elements where we don't see a value is created. So we have in Denmark and Finland, Newsec doing the pure admin task.
Can you hear Morten, Andreas?
Sorry?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I can hear you both, but what I was trying to say was that we do outsource a little bit, but that's only on the pure admin element. So doing the billing and the invoicing and the things that the customers do not see, we apply a third-party administrator who has the scale and the SOPs and the system in place, because we don't think we can create a difference there. There is SOPs and good things already established in the market there, but it's not something the customers see. So it's all the things that the customers are not seeing that we are outsourcing to some degree, you could say.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have one last question before we jump to the next session. So how do you get a sense of what the residents want?
I didn't hear that, sorry, Melis.
Yeah, so we have one last question for you. How do you get a sense of what the residents want?
Yeah, good question. I actually think by having this insourcing approach, we also talk a lot with the customers. We talk with them every day, more or less. So both the customer service team are talking with them, our letting agents are talking with them, and we are trying to knowledge share all of these findings with each other. So we know what is moving in the market and what the customers want. That is one thing, talking with them. But the other thing is also doing ongoing monitorization of happiness and satisfaction from the customers. So we do that each quarter actually, and survey our tenants or customers in order to see what is working and what is not working, in order to always learn. So I think that's two examples. But by doing this insourcing approach, we know a lot about what is going on and what the customers want, because we are talking with them every day, basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sounds good. One last question. Can you elaborate on ways you are using technology?
Yeah. So technology, besides what I just showed here, I think we could definitely do more, and we are trying to use digital tools to make the lives easier for our customers, so to say. But the key thing for us in the way we use technology is data and reporting and knowing our customers. That is for us a key component in order to be a success. So data is actually the key thing for us here, but we are still building our digital model and the technology and how to use it. So we are not there yet, and we are still trying to expand on it. And I think things as AI and all the things happening there could also do an interesting thing for us, actually. So technology is something we always keep an eye on. And I think our digital engagement model, so to say, will also be expanded as technology evolves. So a pretty vague answer, actually, but I think the technology we use is mostly from the system I told about before, but we will mature it even more as we go forward and develop a model.
Thank you, Morten, for this. Being aware of the time, I would like to take the floor and actually give it to James Dearsley, who will be moderating the next panel discussion on how landlord and customer experiences are intertwined and how to improve both. So thank you, Morten, one more time. So James, Daniel, Andreas, Virginia, can I kindly ask you to turn on your cameras and microphones? Fantastic. So I can see almost everybody. Okay, so to shortly introduce the panel, we have James Dearsley, an industry advisor on PropTech and real estate, Daniel Bauer from Swiss Life Asset Management, and Andreas Muster, CEO of DA from Edge Technologies, and Virginia Perez Nieto from CoLive. So, James, the floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you, Melis, and well done for putting together such a wonderfully fluid event. It's working out very well so far. So fantastic and well done. And hi, everybody. Hi, panel.
Hi.
Hello.
So it's our turn. We have to discuss these heady heights of customer experience, which I'm very much looking forward to spending the next hour debating and discussing some of this fantastic topic. So as Melis very kindly introduced this as a session, we're talking about elevating experience to attract and retain tenants. So just briefly, let me just give you that sort of top level description that was in before I go into some of the details here. So in 2023, addressing evolving customer needs is on the top agenda of real estate. This means creating innovative, sustainable spaces where amenities, design, and people operate in great harmony. We've brought together some of the most influential, there you go, you guys are all influential, players in the European residential and commercial property markets together to offer a 360-degree tour of best practices that reshape the built environment experience. So, I mean, this is a really significant topic, but when I saw this in the introduction, I really thought it was quite interesting that Melis, you'd actually put in 2023, addressing evolving customer needs is on the top agenda of real estate. And just as a way of introducing myself, I'm James Dearsley, and I am very fortunate to travel the world and talk at a lot of these conferences and really get a feel for that agenda that is on sort of the fronts of minds of the real estate industry. And funnily enough, Melis, I mean, I was actually going to disagree with that and say that I actually think customer experience has dropped off that top level of the agenda, or has at least been hidden by the world of ESG, net zero carbon and sustainability. And that was one of the things that I think we're going to explore a little bit in this session today. So I'm quite looking forward to doing that. So that's my brief introduction, and we're going to sort of delve into that a little bit more. But what I would like to do is put it to the rest of my panel here. And I've actually got a little timer in here. So we're going to do a 30-second introduction about who you guys are and sort of why are you the right person to be talking about this in the industry. So I'm going to go from my screen, I'm going to go top to bottom. So Virginia, you're last, you're not first, you're last. And I'm afraid, Daniel, you have the short straw of going first. You're coming in immediately. So Daniel, are you ready? My time is about to start and off you go.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel. As Melis said, I'm strategic project manager at Swiss Life Asset Managers here in Zurich. And I think since I grew up with technology and innovation in many aspects of life, I'm one of the panelists here because I'm really used to and passionate about technology and how we use technology in our daily work and our daily lives at home. And yeah, happy to participate here.
Oh my life, you actually nailed that. I mean, that was 30 seconds to
perfect.
The second. That I don't think anybody's ever done that in my life. I'm normally saying stop. So great. Andreas, you're coming in next, and you ready? Off you go.
We at Edge believe that the world needs better buildings. So we focus on sustainability, on smartness, on well-being, on design, CO2 neutrality and flexibility, purely customer focused and customer driven. We believe that the best answer to bring people back from home, obviously, is to offer the best office space to thrive, to collaborate, to socialize, but to also have the right situation or solution for all the work situations of the day.
Not bad. Not bad. You're about 1 second over, but that was pretty cool. Now, so look, Virginia, to be fair, you've got Daniel finished a second before. You had Andreas a second after. Let's see if you can absolutely nail the introduction for 30 seconds. Ready, go.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Spaceflow and to James to inviting me to this panel. My name is Virginia, and I'm a director of business development and strategic partnership at a co-living company, the director of international relationships at RE-Women, and the Spain ambassador at Co-Live. What I do is I help investment funds and operators to understand and go through the new urban living concept, which is co-living, senior living, and active living and student housing, and the particular needs of the different markets within Europe and the UK. I add value through my expertise in establishing and structuring winning partnerships, identifying new growth opportunities, strategic planning, and setting director for projects of sizes. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Valentina. And I will say that, Virginia, the only reason you went over there is because you were thanking Spaceflow and Melis so much. So we can't not allow that to carry on. So thank you so much for the brevity in the introductions. It's one of the most difficult things when you have such a big topic to go into sort of introductions. So one of the things I think is most misunderstood, and actually, no, before I go into that, what I do want to say is to the people who are watching here, the way that I like to run panels is very informal. I don't generally like to bring sort of questions in at the end. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, whether you agree with somebody or whether you disagree with somebody here, please do pop that into the chat. Let me see. I'll bring that into the flow of the conversation. Say hi while we're here, because it's always nice to be engaging with the audience that we have. So please do, like I said, any questions, any comments, even if you just want to say hi, pop that in the chat and we'll bring that in. But so going back that step then, to all of you really, I do want to make sure that we're very clear on what customer experience actually means, so that everybody has a level playing field of understanding that we can then build this sort of conversation on or around. So could I just start, please? And again, Daniel, I'll come to you first, just because you're at the top of my screen. What do we really mean by customer experience in absolute truth? And let's see if everyone agrees with you or not.
Perfect. Yeah, happy to give it a start here. And I think we briefly touched upon this topic this morning, and there was one key word, and that was engagement. And I think that's super important here, to really understand what the customer wants, what the customer feels or thinks. And one topic that I would want to elaborate on here is that for me, we don't need to understand really every detail of the customer journey, but really understand the context our customers are in and the most important touch points that we need to work on, and that we need to maybe bring technology in to enhance the experience, right? But it's also not about digitizing every single touch point that we have, because we are still, I mean, real estate is a people business. So we cannot replace people along the entire customer journey. And yeah, so that for me is really important here.
Okay, Andreas, Virginia, do you feel that's a pretty good summary of that, or is there something more to add in there?
Well, I first of all would say, if you're not outside, you're inside. If you're inside, you're in real estate. So that's the first customer experience, actually. And I liked what we heard this morning. If you talk about offices, it starts at home, the customer experience, and it ends at home. And so we really need to make sure that we have a hassle-free customer experience from the beginning to the start, because every time it is not hassle-free, you might lose some of your customers, which happens everywhere, where people have a hassle that they are annoyed or whatever and don't want to continue. And so also then, if they manage to come to the office, obviously it needs to be a hassle-free day for all the working situations. You need silent rooms, you need collaboration rooms, you need meeting rooms, you need kitchens, you might want to do some sports together, you might want to play some table tennis, but it's not all about fun. It is really about how do the people like to work. And there are these people who like it more silently, and there are the others who like it more outgoing, and we tend to treat everyone equally, and the people don't want that. So it's also very important to have the diversity of the society also reflected in your office space.
That's really interesting what you're saying in there, because you're saying there's two bits I wanted to pick up, and Virginia, I'll come into you in a minute. But Daniel, you talked about something which I was really interested in your statement, in which you said you don't need to know every part of the customer journey. And I'm going to pick up on that, I think, a little bit later. And Daniel, Andreas, you then went into the fact that the experience needs to be hassle-free. And one point which I really liked what you said is that we treat everybody the same, which is fundamentally wrong when we're talking about customer experience, because everything has to be around that level of personalization to the user and not thinking every user is the same. You know, a 45-year-old woman is very different to a 22-year-old, you know, brand new office worker. So they're very different. So I really liked what you've said there. Virginia, what have we missed? What is there to add to what Andreas and Daniel? And you've got well, I don't know if it's easy or if it's hard to come at the end to pick holes in something, but what would you say we're missing in there?
Thank you, James. I agree with you, Andreas. Every customer is different, and in co-living we know that. And also, it's important to remember that in co-living both landlords and tenants are effectively customers. But yet, for these purposes of this discussion, I will focus on tenants. So co-livers, they come for the convenience and they stay for the community. So the whole process is important, and the customer experience. For me, a good customer experience, if we have to define, is when our customer have a good experience and a positive memories, associations of their interactions with our brand and our project and our people, right? So with regard to a co-living, a good customer experience using technology should make it easy for people to search for a home, to have all the information needed at their fingertips, tips to make decisions, to move, enjoy their stay, connect with others, get to know the area and the neighborhood, and then when the time comes, move out fast. So that can be in a nutshell.
It's another really interesting point, isn't it? Because obviously, with your experience from the co-living side of things, what you've now just alluded to is not only have we got to treat people differently, but also we've got to remember that all of the different asset classes that we have within the real estate industry also needs to consider what that customer journey looks like and what that sort of customer is within that journey. So I think that's a really interesting point. And I think just to the people who are watching this, I'd be really interested if any of you have got strong feelings about what customer experience or customer engagement, as you put it, Daniel, at the start, is all about. Have you got any strong opinions about what you feel has been missed or what you feel needs to be included in what's just said? So, you know, feel free to pop a little message in there and we can bring that in. But let me I want to come back to that question that you said there, Daniel, about you don't need to know every part of the customer journey, because in my head, I don't know if that is correct. So convince me otherwise. I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you need to understand the entire customer journey from end to end, but you don't need to understand every detail or every single feeling or thinking a customer has. You need to understand the whole journey, but when it comes to really digging deeper into the touch points, I would recommend to focus on the most important touch points to start with enhancing the customer experience.
Okay, so start top level, and then once you've solved that, you can then go down. So it's like an MVP of customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, prioritize the most important touch points, yeah.
Okay, you also said at the start, and I'm going to come, Andreas, into for you on this one. You said at the start, obviously, this is all about people. So my question to you is, you know, we've alluded to the fact that we can't treat people the same, but I would argue in a way we have to, right? We have to treat all people, and we know that we have to treat people with a customer experience. So how do we treat people differently when it comes to customer experience? Is this about the person, or is it about the technology that enhances that relationship? Where does this lie?
No, I think you can't achieve that with the technique, and like the basics, like our buildings are IoT enabled. So basically each tenant can choose how much engagement he wants for his space. And so we're absolutely flexible on the technical infrastructure as well. So all of the employees of a tenant will be treated equally technique-wise, design-wise. But if it comes to rooms, you see that the accountants, for example, like to sit differently than the marketing people. Or the HR people. And so, and you know, there are some teams who love to sit together all the time and who really hate to move around, and they hate hot desks because they have still some paperwork or stuff to do, just because Germany is not digitalized yet. So some of the people have to work with papers, and you know, so also there it is good to have an area in an office space where these people who have to work with papers don't have to wrap everything up every day, because they naturally will prefer the home office, because they can just stay there and leave their papers on the desk. And so this is a practical example. And you know, it's also important to understand when we currently, I mean, office is under huge discussions, and people are questioning, do we need offices or not? And what you see is, interestingly enough, that managers, for example, they really love to be in the office, and they would love to have their specialist in the space, where the specialists many times want to stay home. And that's many times also because commuting costs a lot of money. For example, if you commute in London, and if you have 90 minutes from your apartment to your place of work, you have to pay £30 every day just for the commuting, and you're wasting more or less 3 hours. So that's what you're competing with. And no matter how great your office is, these people still will say, it is a lot of money for me and it's a lot of time for me. So I either go to the gym and have another 1.5 hours with my family, or I go commute and spend £30 on commuting. And that is a phenomenon we see in many cities. And I mean, also look at New York now. You can hardly breathe in New York. There aren't too many trees in there, and huge commuting, a lot of money. People are they have moved in the countryside. So no wonder that many offices in New York are just empty. That's the way. So I'm saying different situations for employees, but also different living situations. So no matter how great your office is, you will still have difficulties to bring everyone to the office. And you know, some people have cars and parking spaces, and so they just have a convenient commuting, and others don't. And you know, public transportation crowded, whatever. And so you need to distinguish to really judge how good is an office.
So I'm going to give you a funny story on this. You mentioned accountants, Andreas, and obviously accountants for me are quiet, they're diligent, they're organized, and they are the complete opposite to the business development and salespeople, who are generally not as organized, are a little bit louder, and are generally a little bit chaotic. So in the first company, I mean, I'm very generic, but there was my first company that I was at. I was running the big sales team at the time, and they had sat in an open plan office, which obviously at the time was quite radical, the accounts team next to the sales team. Chaos. Almost all of the accounts team walked out because they couldn't stand to be anywhere near the sales team. So it's an absolute classic.
You can do the same with lawyers. Put your legal department next to the salespeople and they go nuts.
It's so you've got to keep these people separate and different, right? Yeah. Just going to mention, Andre, that's a really interesting question you put in the chat. And I think once I've sort of brought Virginia back into this, I'm going to bring that in, because I think that aspect about whether a customer really cares or not, and that customer being the end user, is a really important point. So let's just go, Virginia, on to you in that sort of sense about, you know, is this really about the people, or is it about the technology, or is it about the fusion of the two? Is it a collaboration of both? What do you find from a co-living perspective? Because I would think from co-living it's much more people orientated, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's about the people. It's adapting the technology to the people needs, right? And what Andrea says about the importance of, of knowing the client and allocating them in the right place. That's where co-living starts from the very beginning, from the filling the form, from setting the expectations and And so you can clearly, they have a clear idea where they are going, and what are they, and we have a clear idea of what are they looking for. And this, if you do it from the very beginning, I mean, from before you build the building, from the people needs, all the customer better. And then in regards to technology, I would say for instance, for co-living, after the COVID pandemic, the industry was affected. And then the practice of social distancing, or the transformation, making space even safer, all of this was like an impact. And then, so technology played a big part within these changes, and now smartphones are key, and co-living players rely on them to interact, to make residents more comfortable using applications to ensure the communication and quick services, and to actually these apps are designed to facilitate faster solutions. So I think technology in this case and in co-living helps to meet the client needs and the KPIs as well.
Yeah, it's very astute observation, and I think this is the fascinating thing, if I may say, Virginia, about having you on the panel, because we've got the commercial side, the residential side, and obviously co-living is its own subset of residential with its own unique customer engagement and experience needs. So let me just sort of bring that question that Andre asked in here, and I'm going to put this to you as a panel, but I'm also for the people who are watching, I'm going to say exactly the same thing back to you, and feel free to put some comment in there, because I'd love to see if we're aligned in our thesis. So, Andre's comment about, do people really care? Really? Are we over-analyzing this aspect of customer experience? Are we only looking at, 10% of the people who are coming into our offices or into our buildings really care about the experience? Don't they just want to come to work and then leave and go back again? So, for those of you out in the audience, give me your opinion. What do you think about this? Do they really care, or are we just overthinking this issue? And Daniel, from your perspective, what are your thoughts on this? Are we overcomplicating customer experience? Are we, does it really matter?
Well, can I say one last thing, James?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, in regards, just because the traditional home hunting, compared to the co-living one or the new one where technology applies, for the customer, I think they really do care, and it matters. For instance, when, and I said at the beginning, the people come from the convenience and they stay for the community. So the fact that they can just, and the technology allows to provide a one-stop shop with information about the home, professional photos, virtual tours, real-time availability for the rooms, detailed pricing, and even sometimes information about your housemates, or collaborations with local businesses, which improves, which actually as well helps to connect with the neighborhood. I think this is also something that shows the importance of technology well used. Sorry for the interruption.
No, not at all, because that's your perspective coming in. Okay, so I mean, I actually really like your come from the convenience, stay for the community side. So that's a perfect summing up of that. But Daniel, your perspective, do people really care?
Perfect. Yes. So from my point of view, customer experience in real estate is really important, and I think that people really care. I mean, the location or the real estate where we are living in or where we are working in makes so much, or has such a great part in our daily life, right? So people definitely care about the experience that they are gaining in the real estate. And for me, it's definitely a topic that we need to tackle also in the future. So I really think it's important that we discuss it today, and also will continue to do it in the future. I mean, the home, for example, it's not only the place where we live, right? provide some kind of comfort. It's our safe room, so to say. So it's really important that we have a great experience at home. The same goes for the office. And I think everybody knows being in the office, having a bad Wi-Fi connection. And that's really a bad customer experience in that sense.
It really is. Andreas, you feel the same or a little bit different?
Yeah, 100%. It's first of all, I'm convinced that the joy of use is very important. So we need to enjoy no matter what we do, whether it's an IT system, whether it is a streaming content, whether it's an office. If you don't enjoy to use it, it will be to the disadvantage and you're tempted not to use it. IT systems are so brutal because, you implement something new and the people just don't use it because they're not enjoying it. And so what's the miracle about iPhones? They are very easy to operate and you enjoy it because they are so easy. We meant to buy an office building in San Francisco in, I think, 2018. And I talked to one of the employees and asked him, so do you like the building and are you enjoying yourself? And he said, I picked this company because they have the best office building here in San Francisco, and that's why I work for it. So, I think office is very important in the war for talent, but as we said before, it is now competing with many other things. So if you have a nightmare office, no one will show up. If you have the greatest office in the market, it will not mean that you necessarily can rely on an occupancy of 100% of your employees. That's the new flexibility we have to face.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And I think, from my perspective in it all, that customer experience is a holistic perspective. I mean, we've already mentioned in here the connectivity and having decent Wi-Fi. We've had a great experience of what the office feels like and looks like. I think, Virginia, you really put it brilliantly around that community feel. And I mean, let's be honest. I think Melis has put the comment in here that she cares about the office, and I wouldn't want to come to an office if the environment is repelling, or live in an apartment where there is no community, where it's the bare minimum of 4 rooms and a door. I get it. I get it. I mean, unless we're all going to in the next 10 years turn into the metaverse with Apple's new device and Facebook's Meta device, where we're just going to sit in our apartments and actually live in the metaverse, we want something around us, right? That's
I think one part is still very important. It's like a theater. You can watch the nicest theater play if there are no other people in the audience and no one is laughing along and whatever. You might see the most hilarious theater piece, but you're still not enjoying yourself perfectly. And obviously that is an effect we sometimes see in offices. If you don't have enough people in the office, they cannot communicate, they collaborate and socialize, and they're not really enjoying themselves. And then it starts this, hey, no one is in the office anyways, why should I go? And so I think part of the awful truth is that a vibrant office needs a lot of people in there. Or you need to reduce it. You need to reduce it to the absolute minimum, that the people sit just in one room all together, and then they can still enjoy themselves. But if you don't really feel this community Virginia is talking about, and that applies for offices as well as for residential, then a community doesn't work. A community without people is not a community.
Yes, it's a nice way of finishing it all. So let's move that forward a little bit and sort of move more on to the sort of the aspect of bringing technology into this. We've acknowledged that you need people to make a community. Andreas brilliantly put at the end. But I think what we've also loosely talked about is there is a fusion between the sort of the technology and people, and it's a perfect clash, both operationally but also logistically. And I think this. I think it probably brings about one of my biggest challenges I think the industry has at the minute, which is that of culture. Do we, in your opinions, do we really have the right culture in the real estate industry as it is today to have great customer experience, or are we too self-serving about the purpose of what an office is meant to deliver? Who would like to take that first? I know it's quite a contentious topic, perhaps, but have we got the right culture for customer experience to prevail? Who wants to take that?
Well, happy to give it a start. Just to say, you know, if you compare it to automotive, for example, we have these huge automotive companies with huge research and development departments, and in the real estate industry, we have thousands of companies who are all great, but they really do the research and development by themselves. And if you talk about a seamless customer or hassle-free customer experience in Office, for example, that you really have a Spotify experience and you immediately become one with the building. You're immediately connected and all of that. It is a huge project. I mean, look, Apple invests $25 billion per quarter in research and development and coming up with new great solutions. And here we lack a little of this collaboration and this joint approach, and we don't have this huge market leader in our industry who really moves the needle on offices. Hopefully, at some point, the Googles or the Apples of the world will start to take over. I mean, WeWork meant to do that, and they were at a valuation of 60 billion, and they could have had the means to really invest in customer experience and seamless experiences. We all know where WeWork ended, at least up to now. And so I think there are many nice PropTechs, and many people really know that we're missing some things and that we need to improve, but it is a question of money. There is a lot of money to be invested, and I currently at least don't see this group of companies and venture capital people joining to work on this great unicorn to really bring real estate to the next level. And, you know, we have that in the planning phase, in the construction phase, and in the operating phase. We're unfortunately far away from automation, to say.
Okay, so the industry doesn't collaborate enough. Daniel, we operate in silos. Virginia, I ask you the same question. Have we the right culture, or are we just a complete misfit for delivering great customer experience?
I agree with Andreas, but I think we are getting there as well. I think we really, you know, in some co-living companies, you can see the use of the cloud, where you can improve your services and eliminate problems and improve in general the brand and the product. And the use of technology, really, we've learned that that can make the difference in the operator's ability to be able to deliver this good experience. And we can see that, for instance, Dove Vivo or Solo Stays, where residents can order food, find travel deals, or a gym, or Hamlet that sells your furniture when you move out, and all of these, plus the use of the cloud. I think also there's a different, and I want to believe, and I've seen it as well, that within the flex living, co-living, I would say student housing, but more like co-living, active living, senior living, there is more collaboration in this sense, even co-working. I think, you know, just the co-work says.
Yeah. Okay, so there's more collaboration in the sort of residential space than the commercial space. It's more collaborative. There's, you know, maybe that is the culture is getting. What did you say there, Virginia? The culture is getting there.
Yeah.
Maybe that is restricted purely to residential. Daniel, have you got a thought on that?
So first of all, I think it's really hard to judge about being a right or wrong culture, so to say. But I think that there is definitely a cultural change, probably because of like the market becoming more volatile and the market uncertainty, especially in recent times. But I totally agree with what Andrea said, that we need to open up and we need to openly communicate to our peers, partner up with startups, really innovative partners, and also involve our customers, be it in a co-creation or to actively ask for feedback to really get better day by day. That's super important from my point of view. And we really should make sure that we are not only like working on new ideas, product, services in-house, but really collaborate with the external ecosystem that we are all working in.
And it's maybe just to add a practical example, because I said, we stand for the most sustainable buildings, the smartest buildings, we stand for well-being, for design, CO2 neutrality, flexibility, but that doesn't mean that we have to invent everything ourselves. Like for our employees, everyone uses the iPhone and they really enjoy the iPhone and they pick us as an employer because we offer them the iPhone. That doesn't mean that we have to invent and service the iPhone. That's just a device we are using. And for me, smartness or technique in the buildings, it is something which for us at least will never be a USP in a way that we have to invent it ourselves, like our designs, for example. That's our edge design and the overall customer experience. That is our USP and our responsibility. But I would love to have a similar product like the iPhone, which brings this seamless experience in our buildings, in our office buildings, and currently at least most. I mean, we've heard the guy from Immo from the Czech Republic, I think, explaining his. If you know Immo and how hard they try to come up with their own inventions, basically, but that is not, we at Edge, we are a project developer. We're finding the nicest spots, the nicest land. We're developing the best buildings there. We find the best tenants. But our USP is not, we're not a tech company itself to invent. We don't want to invent an iPhone, and we shouldn't be inventing the technique of our buildings. But that's currently what's happening because we don't find these perfect solutions. So we ended up to set up our own software as a service company, which we can do. But if you really want to move the needle in the overall industry, I think it shouldn't be a project developer setting up his own software as a service company, but it would be perfect if the Apples or whoever of the world would come up with this same, because they have the means, they have the development teams, they have completely other and a lot more resources to do that. And so that's what I meant. We're lacking this. There's not a real estate technology company which says, okay, we want to take care of the technique in buildings, which is also very essential for the sustainability. We need all the data. We need all the reports in the future, and that is something, at least up to now, we struggle to get that all in place. There is no real-time data yet of all the buildings we have, but it should be an easy one, theoretically. Practically, it's very difficult still.
Yeah, I think just to pass comment on that myself, actually, if you guys don't mind. What you're talking about there is data is, unless we understand our data, we can't genuinely bring about a great experience, right? Because it's one facet of the entire process. And I think that speaks to the wider digital transformation aspect, because, PropTech is by the definition that was created a long time ago, PropTech is one small part of the wider digital transformation change. And when you look at academic material around what digital transformation is, there's generally 5 things that make up the digital transformation journey. And they speak a lot to what we're talking about here. So number 1 is customer. You have to understand your customer intimately. I think the real estate industry does understand its customer. I think it certainly understands its customer today, but I think what we've learned from the pandemic is it probably doesn't necessarily understand its customer into the future, which is something it's got to work out. It's got to understand its competitors today and competitors in the future. I think that's another aspect. It's got to understand what innovation really means. I think there is a massive cultural problem in the real estate industry around what innovation is and what innovation is not. The last one is values. What value does the real estate industry serve? And I think that is a fundamental misunderstanding within the real estate industry, that it doesn't understand the job that it is serving for its customer. I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges, certainly in the commercial world, not so, Virginia, in your world of the co-living, because actually I think co-living is actually, it understands its job very well, which is there's an affordability issue, there's a transience issue, which a certain demographic of the population wants to have, which is why co-living serves a beautiful purpose. But the last thing about this digital transformation journey, which is a very long and convoluted way of me summarizing what you said there, Andreas, is data. Unless the real estate industry understands what data it holds, how it collects its data, how it structures its data, how it stores its data, we will not be able to fully provide a fantastic customer experience because we need the data in order to support that. Is that, just for a quick comment, is that a fair thing you feel? And Andreas is saying, no, that's not what you mean. Go for it. Tell me.
No, you know, I'm a huge fan of collaboration. So I think the ones who understand the customers best should always be in the development involved in the development of the IT. I'm just saying, you know, drive the process where you really move the needle, where you make the difference, where you have the core expertise. And other than that, collaborate. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think it's sufficient if now all the real estate companies in Europe would start to set up their own software as a service company. So it would probably be better if they join forces, and also money, you know. If you see in Germany, the PropTech industry for the last 10 years, there have been many companies working on the same use case. If you had joined forces, you have 10 companies with 5 million, or you have one company with 50 million. I think the one company with 50 million has a lot better or a more positive outlook to become successful than the 10 ones. They will consolidate at one point anyway, but they will have wasted quite a lot of time and money on things they had done simultaneously.
Okay. Interesting. So you have a full-blown utopia there, Andreas, which is the real estate industry working together.
Yeah, I'm romantic. I'm a very romantic person. No, but you know, it's also, if you look at automotive industry, all of a sudden everyone says you need to go into electric mobility. I don't know how that happens, but we don't have that trend yet. If you talk about smartness of buildings or IoT-enabled buildings, at least I don't see it yet.
I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole of comparisons between automotive and the real estate industry around what the product is that is being sold, and I suppose the homogeneous nature of the asset classes that we're dealing with. But we should probably not go down that, because one of the things I'm very, very aware of, and Virginia is about to, she has to dip off in a few minutes. So Virginia is very, very conscious of that. So I'd like to just move that conversation on a little bit. To really looking at customer experiences based on the asset classes that all three of you are dealing with. So Virginia, can I just start with you, please? Looking at the sort of the co-living sector, I know that there are some sort of operations, potentially, so not necessarily sort of UK based, but more European wide, which are very lacking of technology, and they seem to survive okay. So why should the co-living sector genuinely bring on technology to enhance its customer experience journey?
Maybe the question is why not? And every co-living company includes technology in their process. I'm not going to say every, because I know, but most of them, and the one that succeed because it's key. And the client is Gen Z and millennials, and we use technology from the very beginning. So it's something that we are familiarized. And as you mentioned, James, understanding who is the main client and what it's looking for is key for success. And it helps to design the building and to build and connect communities. And this is where technology plays a big part as well. And also, it helps from tailor making products to the client, as mentioned before, to providing a perfect and organized customer journey. And in this case, every step of the journey matters from the beginning, when the potential co-living is filling the application, as I mentioned, where we set clear expectations, and that are, and then they have aligned information to ensure the correct fit of the co-liver and the community and the co-living, and from the design that are carefully, the process that are carefully designed to help to find the candidates appropriate for each building. Technology is there, and then when the process continues to move out the stage where it is possible to continue to nurture the community spirit with and when they go out, technology again plays a big part, and you follow up with them, sending photos or subscribing newsletters, and with so I to answer to your question, I think yeah, it's more like, why not? Like it's something that comes from the co-living. It's not like other asset classes that technology just arrived, but it was born with technology. Obviously, after the co-living, the process are being implemented and with technology. But I don't see our co-living business operating without technology.
Okay, that's really interesting. So let me
want to grow, right? If you want.
Yeah. So let me just summarize before you disappear, Virginia, because what I always like to do as a sort of as a moderator is actually summarize key points that speakers have put together. So I've picked out 3 really key things that you've brought in, Virginia. So number one, I really like your statement of come for the convenience, stay for the community. I really liked, and I've just sort of summarized what you've just mentioned around the sort of the use case of technology within co-living and the question of why not. And you know, technology is playing a huge part in connecting, and this is what I really like, and nurturing that community that is obviously, as you can see in the graphic behind you, you know, community is one of the 3 core aspects of that co-living product, I suppose, if we want to talk it like that. So there are 3 really important things that I think you've picked up. And before you dash off, because I'm going to go on to a different question here, but I just want to thank you for your time, and just give us a wave when you go.
Thank you very much, and apologies. Thank you, Andreas and Daniel. And
thank you very much.
Looking forward to watch the rest of the session. It's recorded, right, James?
It is recorded. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is recorded for you. But Virginia, thank you ever so much for all of your time. And for those of you who are still on and watching this, so just so you know, there'll be a poll which will be just coming out into the chat very shortly, which is going to be asking the question. So Melis is going to put this out, which is what tech enabler is the most important? And it's just coming on now, so you should be able to see that. So which tech enabler is the most important for an easier and more enjoyable living? Is it a tenant app, a digital parcel service, mobile access to room service, smart parking, or other? And just drop whatever that sentence is in the chat. And while that's going on, Virginia, good to see you, and she's away. So do pop your answer in there. So while we're doing that, Daniel, let's come to you. So I've sort of done that on a co-living side. Oh, and by the way, what I will just say is, Andre, I'm going to come to your question because it's a very good question. So thank you for that again. You're getting all the questions in. So if there's other people who are watching who want some questions answered, I'll prioritize you over Andre because he asks all the time. Daniel, talk to me. What technology are you seeing that you think is really exciting in your sort of particular area of specialism?
Perfect. Yes, happy to do so. So from my point of view, I mean, a tenant app, for instance, will be able to offer all the services that were also mentioned in the hall, right? With the tenant app, you will be able to get access to meeting rooms, book meeting rooms. You will be able to use a digital parcel service and so on. So I think it's really about offering a one-stop shop solution for the tenant, for instance, but also for all the other parties in the ecosystem. I mean, we talked a lot about the benefits that are available to tenants, for instance, but having a tenant experience platform will also bring additional benefits to the property manager, who will be able to really have one single communication channel toward the tenant, to work on tenant requests, to post news on the, or send out newsletters and so on, share relevant information to the tenant group. And for the asset manager as the property owner, obviously, to get more insights into the tenant relationship. And I think you mentioned that we need to understand the data, right? And that can be one channel how to get more data about the tenant relationship and how to make really use of the data from this relationship.
Cool. Andreas, what are your thoughts on that? Any specific examples that you can bring, which is excellent for customer experience within your expertise?
We as a project developer say in the future, we will focus in particular on the performance of our buildings, and that is the energy performance. We say we want to be CO2 neutral, so we will do everything to make sure that the smart and technical, well-advanced building we have constructed will be operated in the appropriate way. And we see that facility managers very often lack of the capabilities to really manage the properties digitally. So that will be a key focus, that we make sure that we don't only promise that we're CO2 neutral, but also will procure that we will achieve that in the period of operation. So that is the building part, or you could say the landlord part. On the tenant part, it is very interesting to see that all the tenants have different focus, and you have the same building and you have multi-tenants, and some people buy the tenant app and others don't. Some tenants say we don't need a tenant app, we have a different way of engaging with our people. Some people take the smart parking, some want to have a smart elevator, also want to have smart elevators, smart sun blinds. Others say our people rather like plugs. So all of these things, if you had asked this question 2018, I would have answered the same way. If you ask me in 2023, I would say a tenant app on the user experience doesn't really move the needle. Like, you also have cybersecurity. So you see that some of the most advanced buildings, if they get hacked by someone and you end up standing in the street for an hour, a day, 2 weeks, whatever, you can't enter your office, people will say, wow, good if you have a key and if you have an analog access to your building. And, smart parking, sometimes smart parking doesn't work. Then you stand in front of the parking space and, so you will always have to have a manual fallback solution. And you will never get rid of a key for an office. Someone always has to have a key. And usually you also have a key card because people forget their mobile, or the akku is empty or whatever. And so, you always need to procure that there is an alternative for it. And so it will never be like Spotify, which is my favorite application, I would say, that replaced my radio, my CD player, my tape recorder. All of these things are gone, and that's perfect. But all of the things you're listing here, they will never replace things completely.
And I think, if I'm brutally honest, that Andreas perfectly summarizes, I think, what we've been talking about, which is, really the best customer experience you're going to have is a fusion of great technology with engaged people. I do think people care. I don't think they all do. I think there are a small portion who just want to go to work and come home and they want to forget about it. But I do think people do care about the experience they have within the working environment. And I think, looking at the poll results which have come through, that perfectly summarizes it as well. Tenant apps, perhaps unsurprisingly, are seen as the most important enabler. Maybe there's a bit slightly biased poll. But I do think it's quite interesting picking up on what was second place, which was the digital parcel services. And then Jason's comment, I don't know if you saw in the chat. Jason, I'm going to give you a shout out just for bringing in the comment, but from his safety letterbox, which is seeing a huge increase around the smart parcel boxes, from a security perspective. And I think we all know that is absolutely going to be paramount coming into the future, and how our buildings are going to be used, and the transient nature of that, and how deliveries are coming in as well. So it was just interesting. Nobody mentioned smart parking, and I think that is a thought about where the future is going. I mean, we're already starting to see developments across Europe and in North Americas, where developers are being encouraged not to put in any sense of parking at all, just from a sustainability perspective as much as anything else. But let me just sort of finish and conclude, and I just want to pick up a few points that I think the two of you have mentioned here, which is, and I really want to come back to that point of right at the start, Daniel. I think it was almost in your first sentence, you said it's all about people. I think you're absolutely right. And you then went on to the fact that true customer experience needs to be hassle-free. And I think for me, from a technology standpoint, there is a real need to look at breaking down the friction between intention and action. So great customer experience always comes from that understanding that it has to be hassle-free, as you've mentioned, break the friction of intention and action. Never ever treat people exactly the same. We talked about accountants versus salespeople as a classic, probably, you know, quite an extreme version, but it is an important area. I think, Andreas, you made quite an important point about customer experience in terms of the real estate market, which is we do lack a market leader in the office experience, and that as a, you know, we're getting there, and it was telling the real estate industry that things can be done differently, and I expect that to continue, but perhaps not at the same volume. And you also mentioned that we don't collaborate sufficiently. And I think that is a really important point to finish on. That of collaboration and cultural change within the sector is fundamentally important if we're going to instigate change as we move forward. And while we're here, Matt, I love your dartboard in the background. That is really, really cool. So while we're here, I'm just going to thank Daniel, Andreas for all of your time. Obviously, Virginia had to jump off and a couple of panelists had to leave, sadly, but I think it's been a really enjoyable session. So Daniel, Andreas, thank you so much for your time. And Melis, perfect timing. Over to you while I dream of playing a bit of darts on that dartboard.
Thanks, James.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really enjoyable. Thank you, everybody. Before we jump into the last session of RExperience today, I just wanted to remind everyone that you will be able to find the recording on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you sign up to our newsletter to get the recording, to get the key learnings from each and every session that we held today. And also you can follow us on LinkedIn to see everything that we've been sharing, and we will be sharing about the event and all the content that we produce. And lastly, if you want to get even more customer experience case studies, inspiration, you have the link to our blog, and there you can read about some interviews from PIMCO Prime, HIH, CR, Roundhill Capital, and more. So I would like to introduce the presenter of our last case study, Mats Klein from Orange Capital Partners, and he will be introducing the case study called The Digital Building Era, Helping Property Staff with the Right Tech Stack. To accompany him in this case study, we have my co-founder, Jan here, so please turn on your microphones and cameras. I believe you're both.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, I have to excuse myself. I'm on a holiday, so I'm in Spain. I'm sitting somewhere at a bar, just the first bar I could find with Wi-Fi. So apologies for that, but I hope it gives you some kind of holiday feeling.
Well, that's great, Mats, actually, that you're bringing the summer vibes here to Prague, where we have a very, very heavy rain. So let's kick it off. I'll be sharing my screen and guiding you through the presentation.
I have the presentation on. Can I also share my screen, Melis? Is that okay?
I believe you need. You can try, but I think you need to be a host for that. But give it a try. If you can't, I will be doing that. Okay, fantastic.
Works? Great. All right. Yeah, welcome to my presentation. I'm Mats Klein, working at Orange Capital Partners. Our headquarters is based in the Netherlands. We are active throughout Europe in 4 different markets: Denmark, Ireland, Finland, and the Netherlands. With residential portfolio of around 15,000 residential units. Besides that, we have also a retail business, but today I would like to focus on our residential business. I'm responsible in my position for the Live Residential brand. That's our tenant experience brand. We started with that in the Netherlands, and we are expanding now to the other countries as well. I would like to bring you on this business case where we basically launched in our first building, the Waldo building in The Hague, consisting of 520 residential units, 3 towers in one area next to each other. And here we actually launched our new way of managing our assets, just as a pilot, basically, which is going quite successful so far. Yeah, I would like to show you how we came to that setup and share a bit of insights with you guys today. So first of all, our vision on the changing tenants' needs. Basically, over the past years, we have been experiencing and hearing from our experience in the market that our the vision of our tenants is changing. They, for example, they don't accept the poor service no more. Poor service is a no-go. Besides that, also due to the last COVID that we encountered, people spend more time in their rental home. Working from distance is more, it's more common. So they spend more time in the residential units, how we call it. And with that, they expect a high service level than they used to in the past. We've seen now in the tenant surveys, people, the tenant satisfaction could be better. We have in the Netherlands a shared tenant survey that we do with the 10 institutional investors active in the Netherlands. And we see that there the tenant satisfaction could be better. If you compare it to the hotel business already, where they only want to deliver 9+ rankings, it's totally different in the residential scene. I think that's something you can recognize throughout Europe. And I think finally the landlords, they figured out that they have to do something about it, right? You cannot get rid of it anymore with a satisfaction score of 6 out of 10. That's not the way to go, and that's not the way you would like to present yourself. I think the reason for the lowest tenant satisfaction has been that the landlords were quite distant from their end consumers. And first of all, the realization of that is most important, because with that, you can invest in increasing service level and work towards a higher rating, I would say. And the great thing of us being a landlord is that we have a long-term vision. We're an institutional investor with institutional capital behind. So we're always looking in the long run, 20 years, 30 years ahead. We know that we will be in this business, and that's why we can make these long-term decisions. Then a bit more about what we set up there in Waldo. So basically, we went from a generalistic approach, the traditional setup, asset manager, us being the asset manager, fund manager, and then a property manager in between, who is our main point of contact towards our tenants. And what we basically did here is we swapped that a bit, and we said, hey, this property manager is quite generalistic, as doing the technical aspects, the customer service aspect, and the financial aspect, and we basically split these professions to different partners. So we partnered up with a party that can do our technical maintenance. We have another party that runs our finance around the building and our tenants, and then we have a customer service part of the business. So we all do that from our mobile app, the Live app. And together with Spaceflow, we created this great tech stack within the Live app. So we integrated a lot of functionalities and features over the past year, and came to I tried to highlight a bit the main elements that are in there. People can do reflect their maintenance requests through the app. They have a chatbot where they can talk to and get answers for their different questions that they might have around their lease, and they will receive response also within the app. And I can go after them one by one, but I don't think we have time for that. But this kind of give you an overview of the functionalities that we have been implementing there. So what can I say about it? Because we launched only the 1st of April 2023, so I collected some numbers, and I think they kind of speak for themselves. If you look at our success rate of implementing this, the solution in the Waldo asset, is that within a week we almost hit already the 70% adoption rate. There you saw that tenants were actively, we went from the traditional setup to a new setup. So it was not that they moved in for the first time. So people were already living there. It was existing stock. But you see, they straight away embraced the new functionalities, and they were probably curious about what's all in that app. And they've been using our packaging system quite heavily. We delivered 1,200 parcels in the building, saving up to 316 kilograms of CO2. And we had already 1,420 incoming messages through the chat. Great thing is, most of you, when you read this statistic, 1,400 messages, yes, somebody needs to respond to them. Yeah, that's correct. But we have a self-serve mechanism in the chatbot who's answering, who's recognizing patterns and recognize the questions being asked, and frequently asked questions, they can be answered straight away by the chatbot. So there's no person involved. And obviously the more complicated incoming messages, like for example, my neighbors make a lot of noise. These are ones that come straight away to our location manager, who's then picking it up from there, one-on-one with that tenant. This setup created a happiness rate. They got a survey after the conversation that was closed, and 86% rated their conversations with a happy, and you even have a happy plus, who are very, very satisfied. That's very good, but the happiness rate is one thing to steer on, but obviously it's also important what was the other 14% not happy about, and that's the nice thing of having everything digitalized and having the dashboard ready. You can zoom in on the 14% that was not happy, and how we could improve there, because I do not tend to point here that we did everything right from the beginning. Obviously, we're also learning on the way, and we are improving while we are doing this. The adoption rate of 70% is great. However, how active are these users in the app? Because an adoption rate is one that's just signing up for the app, but then being active in the app, obviously that contributes to the community, and that sees how successful and if it hits the demand of our tenants, and that's 86%. Then we had a high first-time fix in the building, 87%. That's for the repair maintenance tickets. And we are now working on the increase of the self-serve support, what I just mentioned with the chat functionality, that went up to 0% to 17%. And obviously we would like to grow that to 70, 80, 90%. I think that should be possible. Just some insights. Jan, what do you think? Do you think it's a success so far?
Hi, everyone. To just explain, Mats also, we agreed with Mats to make this more interactive, as he doesn't like to just give 30 minutes monologue, right? So I'll step in with some questions, and I want to encourage everyone in this room, virtual room, to ask, shoot the questions. Valdo, I think to your question, Mats, Valdo is a great example how you can really run the operations in more innovative way. So really, everyone, anything may be interesting for you, shoot a question. Mats, I've prepared some questions for you, if I may, in the meantime, or until someone raised the questions. And I would love to, because you showed here a great numbers, I would say. So if you can maybe elaborate on, because from my experience, a lot of landlords, real estate operators, they understand the vision, they understand the big picture, but some may be a bit afraid of the execution and if they will be able to onboard the tenants and hence bring the benefit actually. So could you maybe elaborate a bit more on how you achieved and what you do? What is your strategy to achieve the first important numbers, which is the adoption?
Yeah, I think you hit the right point there. So we were talking a lot about it, and how could we digitize, automate things, but in the end you just need to do it. And I think this is a great example of just thinking about something that you based on your experience there's a whole team behind, obviously, what you think should work best, and then just do it. And of course, what I said, we came across things after a week. Shit, we did not think about that process, or we did not think, but then you cover it, you fix it somehow, because in the end, it's just about spending time on it, investing time in it. And I think that's also our advantage. We are quite Orange Capital Partners is quite a dynamic company, very flat, organized. So yeah, it makes us very agile, I would say. And it's for us easier to run these kind of pilots, because we create resources internally that jump on the case and make it work. Yeah, and I think that's one of the advantages we have, because on the one hand you can have this whole nice digitalization roadmap and automation, but in the end the whole company, the whole organization needs also to change from the traditional path into the new, the newer technology.
I would only sound this out and credit to Mats and his team, because I think it's really about the resources and engagement, not only always on the technical part, they are usually engaged, but on the operator side. And I think the results prove that you did a great job so far. I wanted to actually take a couple of, and I can see we have some questions, right? But if I may still, we'll take one or two, maybe more steps backwards, Mats, with you. And if like you look backwards, was there any moment at the Orange Capital Partners or any other case studies? Hopefully you inspire here many more people, but was there something that has inspired your approach for the Waldo, not only Waldo building, but your strategy?
Yeah, I think our main inspiration comes from different industries. So if you look at the just touched up on it, the hotel sector, where it's all about customer first and the customer experience, putting them on number one, and they realized over the past years, this could even unlock new revenue. With the new technologies out there, it's easier to approach people, because your customers, because it's not a human always that necessarily has to do this, could also be an automated message. So I think that's a big inspiration, and with that also the e-commerce experience that we have had as a from the customer perspective. If you're involved with a problem about the package that was not delivered from an e-commerce platform, and you get in touch with them, if you look at that experience, that's actually the experience that our tenants should also deserve, and that's where we are working towards. So yeah, that's definitely. So I would say our inspiration mainly comes from different industries outside the real estate world,
where the customer is always in the center, right? So hotel or e-commerce. Perfect. Thank you, Mats. We have one question from the audience. So let me ask you if you can tell, if you can tell or talk about which feature or features of the Live Waldo were essential to attract the tenants to the app. And if you already know from the data which contributes most value in terms of a positive holistic living experience. Question from Leonard. Thank you.
Yeah, funny enough, because my brain sometimes can go a lot of directions about how nice new initiatives, how to serve the tenants. Oh, let's do this, let's do EV charging, let's do packages, let's do this, that. But then always comes back basically to the beginning is first, I think today we have to solve so much because we've been doing things over the past 30, 40 years, always the same way. And we first have to solve the key issues. And that's basically repair tickets, other questions regarding the lease, termination, deposit, you name it. So basically the very, very basic, that's where we see, if we look in the dashboard, where the most traction is. And there you see that yeah, these are the main pain points today. And if you solve them, that's step one. And from there on, you can work towards building a community, add new kind of services. But I think first we need to catch up with the, yeah, with the, maybe I'm making it a bit more too dramatic. It's not that the tenants were mistreated over the past year. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But you want to bring it from a 6 to a 9. So in that sense, you first have to fix the basics, and then from there on, you can start to build that community and the trust of your tenants back again, and they start to embrace your brand and be willing to interact with that brand. I hope it answers the question.
I'm sure it does. Another question. Questions. Perfect. To apologize for it. So this question is from Jason Griffin. Okay, I can see the full name. So the question, how did you implement the parcel delivery? It's great to see this being taken into account as we are educating on the parcel strategy at the moment, and it seems to be the last thought. So credit to the numbers on the parcels, probably, that you deliver.
Yeah, we see that in the big apartment blocks, it's always an issue with, at least we experienced that in the Netherlands, also a bit in Denmark, but every country has its different dynamics. So I would talk now from the Netherlands perspective. You see that the postman arrives and just throws in the 10 packages through the common entrance, and then the tenant, he rings all the bells of the different tenants, and then they all walk down by themselves to grab their package. And a lot of packages got lost. So we partnered up with the parcel delivery company, and yeah, basically we are buying their service, and we are placing their lockers in our different assets. And what we did is they have their own app, web app, and we said that's not the way to go. We want everything from the Live app accessible, and that's how we implemented their services in the Live app. So in the Live app, you can now see your package from H&M arriving tomorrow. So we are tracking the packages there, we are listing them, and with the app you can also open the parcel locker when you arrive back from work and you want to pick up your parcel.
Beautiful. Another question. Thank you for that engagement. Arslan Avakov, as an asset manager, has the investment into the app and services been worth it? Do you have additional revenue from the services, or are tenants willing to pay a higher rent rate?
I like the question a lot. It's definitely part of discussions we have had internally as well. What does it bring us? First of all, there's a lot of soft factors, right? If your tenants are more happy in your building, they probably treat your building better, treat their apartment better. They enjoy living there. So in the end, in the long run, they should stay longer. Obviously, there are moving factors which make tenants move. You have a new job, you found a partner, and you're going to live together in a bigger flat. So yeah, it's always hard to prove this. I don't think you should expect any return on investment in the first years. Then it's just basically an expense you make. But in the long run, obviously we see big returns. Why? People stay longer, so less churn moments. Churn costs money, and eventually, when people start to embrace your brand, we are definitely, we are very confident that people are willing to pay more rent or pay the same amount of rent, and then maybe they spend money on other services that you offer them. So it's not, might not only be the rental income anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, it's only an investment. It's an expense.
Always hard to quantify this, right? It's a long-term shot. Maybe if I may just complement from the Spaceflow perspective, we've to answer Arslan as well. We've seen what Mats said, that it is about the tenant retention, right? So you should your tenants should stay longer with you. You shouldn't have this dry period where you need to find a new tenants. And we've been able to achieve with other clients up to 20% higher tenant retention. So from that you can create a nice business case for your ROI with such a tools. And from Arslan, another question. I'll sneak into another question. If there are not others, do any of the services have to be processed or touched by your property manager and facility manager? And how have these parties reacted to your more digital direction?
Yeah, so basically two questions. Do any of the services have to be processed or touched by a property manager? Yeah, definitely. So we have, for example, when a rental termination comes in through our app, then the location, basically there's nobody involved anymore. So it's all the information is being collected from the tenant, and then in the end sent towards the service manager, who is then checking if the termination is legit, yes or no. And if yes, then he or she needs to approve it. And then, the next process will start. So there's definitely people involved from property manager or facility manager side or technical manager side. How did they respond? It's basically a partnership that we did. So we put all the parties together on the table. We told them how we would like to see it, and if they could offer us a proposal based on what we acquired, what we needed from them. And they were very curious, and they also saw this, I think, kind of as an investment to see how that works. They know that there's a lot of PropTech out there that will come their way. And in the beginning, everybody was from the property management side a bit skeptic about it, but I think they start now also to see that there's a lot of opportunities there, and makes also their work much easier. So no, I would say that their response were very positive and very curious as well.
Thank you, Mats. We are actually running over, so I'll let you enjoy the rest of your holiday. Thank you for all the insights. Thank you also the audience for all the questions. I hope it was really insightful for everyone. And we're passing over to Alice.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This was a really, really nice opportunity to meet new people and exchange opinions. And I think a great event overall. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter and follow us on LinkedIn to get the content first that we'll be publishing right after this. You'll be getting the key learnings and also the recordings of all of the sessions that we onboarded today. So keep on following. Yeah, we'll be sharing all the content. And thank you so much for tuning in. And enjoy the weekend.